Is your dental office social distancing? Are you texting from random numbers in order to let your patients know when it's safe to come in from the parking lot? With Mango Voice, you can now two-way text from your business number directly from our desktop app. That enables your team to communicate seamlessly from the numbers your patients know and recognize. Watch how Mango's text services can streamline your parking lot communication. Call us today to find out how texting, along with our other groundbreaking features, can streamline your dental office communication and improve your patient experience.
Kicking off our afternoon session is Dr. Christopher Phelps. Dr. Christopher Phelps is an entrepreneur, general dentist, and an Amazon best-selling author who practices in Charlotte, North Carolina. In his first 7 years of practice, he grew the revenue of his practices by a factor of 10x, going from one practice location to 4 locations. After selling 2 of those offices for profit, Dr. Phelps focused on maximizing the capacity of his remaining 2 practices and had 2 consecutive years of $1 million revenue growth. In 2016, he launched Golden Goose Scheduling, dentistry's premier new patient scheduling service, which is designed to help practices answer and schedule more new patient calls. In 2016 and 2018, Dr. Phelps was selected as a Doctor's Choice National Dental Award winner, an award he was nominated and voted on by his fellow dentists. Out of the 6,000 dentists nominated each year across the US and Canada, he was the only one to receive this honor. In addition to being a Colby certified trainer, a key opinion leader to several large dental companies, and understanding how to get new patients in the door, Dr. Phelps is also an expert in the schedule of influence and ethical persuasion. He has studied under the authority in this field, Dr. Robert Cialdini. And out of the thousands of people who apply yearly, he was only 2 selected and awarded the title of Cialdini Method Certified Trainer. Dr. Christopher Phelps will be presenting Closing the Patient Treatment Gap by Marketing in a Pandemic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Christopher Phelps, and thank you for joining me today live at my home for the Nifty Thrifty Virtual Summit. And I'm excited to bring to you a talk I'm pretty passionate about on marketing in a pandemic, how to close the gap in patient treatment that many of you are starting to experience right now in your practices. So I know your time is important, so let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll keep this train moving. So this is a talk I gave some of my coaching clients in what I call the Strategic Practice Coaching Program. And it's something that I've noticed, when times like this occur, when there's big events going on, a global crisis, an economic crisis, whatever, you're going to see that there's 2 main mindsets that have been created in patients that we're going to be discussing today. Since I think we are going to be giving continuing education, it's just a couple of disclosure slides. I'm going to mention a couple of companies. Dental Intelligence, Patient News. I think Patient News may be speaking at some part of the summit later. These 2 are companies that have sponsored courses of mine in the past. I know them well. I believe in their products, but I have no direct financial ties to them. Like I don't own the company or get any revenue back from them for any reason, other than they do sponsor my courses on occasion. Of course, my companies that I did start, on the other hand, Call Tracker ROI, a marketing tracking company, and of course, my new patient scheduling service called Golden Goose Scheduling are, of course, companies I did found and have a financial vested interest in. So if I do mention them, just take that with a grain of salt that even though I do think they're the best things out there, I am an owner there. So, all right, let's get to it. Let's talk about closing this gap, okay, and how we're going to market in this pandemic to close this gap in patient treatment. And as I mentioned, because of this coronavirus and really any big major thing like an economic crisis or what have you that could happen, has really kind of divided people up into 2 mindset buckets, if you will. And a mindset is interesting. We define it from the science of influence and from a behavioral science standpoint as being who you are in the moment you're about to make a decision. But who you are in that moment you're about to make that decision, what kind of shapes your mindset is where you are in that moment when you're about to make that decision. Where you are physically, meaning the sights, the sounds, the smells around you. right? I'm physically in my home right now. I'm not in an office, so to speak, a dental office. Where you are emotionally in that moment, and where you are cognitively, like what are your thoughts dwelling on? And those things, where you are in that moment, environmentally, emotionally, and cognitively, all factor in your mindset in the moment you're going to make a decision. And I've got study after study I could show you how important that mindset is and how it will determine what decision you're likely to make next. So as I mentioned, this kind of global pandemic, and especially the shutdown here in the United States that this coronavirus has caused, has kind of really created two main types of mindsets. And because of those two mindsets, it's really created a huge problem. On the one hand, we've got this risk tolerant mindset we're going to talk about. Somebody who, those are the ones going into our practices right now, who you're seeing when the doors first opened, so to speak. The ones that didn't care about wearing a mask, right? Those are the ones when the restaurants have opened up, they're the ones eating inside, okay, and having a meal, and really haven't been too concerned with the effect that it could have on them. So they're more tolerant to the risk at hand of catching the virus. But on the other end of the spectrum, you've got these risk-averse folks, right? People who those are the ones we are not seeing in our practices right now. And, while it's good to be busy with these risk-tolerant folks, for many of us, it's a false sense of security, as you're going to see, because depending on how long you've been in practice, if you've been in practice for 20 years, you may have tons of these risk-tolerant folks that are feeding your schedule, okay? And that may be enough to get you through the gap. But for most of you, let's say if you've been practicing 1 year, 2 years, less than 5 years, you're going to run out of these risk-tolerant folks. And in fact, you may have already run out of them. And you're starting to see that your schedule is starting to lighten up. And so there's this time, and this is what the gap is. It's the time from when we run out of seeing these risk-tolerant folks to when the risk-averse folks, those who don't feel safe coming in to see us, actually feel comfortable and safe enough to come back. So it's this gap of time in patient treatment that's what's going to be costing us. And many of you are going through that right now. And I know that because you reach out to me and I talk to you about it daily. So the gap is really going to come in two areas we're going to discuss. It's going to come from hygiene. Okay, your hygiene treatment chair is starting to see gaps, especially in this October, November timeframe, but also in our doctor chair treatment as well. So what are we going to do about that gap? Well, why is the hygiene gap there, right? Why are we not seeing patients scheduled? And why do we have these huge holes in right now in September, October, November, right? And our friends at Dental Intel kind of put a nice little slide out there for us and have shared that on Facebook and whatnot to kind of explain it to us. Because in an unprecedented time, suddenly we didn't see patients because of the shutdown. Many of our offices were closed to patients except for emergency care only for at least 2 months, okay, in April and May, and sometimes even June, depending on the state that you were in. Well, that means that we didn't schedule those patients who were due to come back in for 6 months for their recall care. So now here we are coming up on 6 months later, the end of September, okay, the 1st of October and November, and it's like crickets in our schedule, okay? The chairs are empty because of that. So COVID has created, the shutdown itself has created this hygiene gap treatment, okay? And the media is not helping this at all. In fact, the media is working against this, especially when quote unquote authority centers or expert centers are giving patients bad information, okay, bad recommendations, like the World Health Organization. And here's a headline just from last month, okay, delay routine dental checkups, the WHO urges, until this COVID risk is known. Okay, so it's these kind of media headlines that are feeding that gap, and it's going to extend our hygiene chair treatment gap at treatment. But at the same time, not only do we have a hygiene problem, we're also going to dry up on patients in our doctor chair as well. And this kind of goes back to that mindset issue that we discussed. Okay, and as I mentioned, we've had two kind of buckets that people have kind of fallen into because of this worldwide uncertainty. The risk-tolerant mindset, okay, those that were willing to take a calculated risk, versus this risk-averse mindset. And I like this comment here. We've considered every potential risk except the risk of avoiding all risks. And that's what risk-averse means. They don't like to take a risk. If they don't feel safe and secure, they're not going to make a move. So what are we going to do about this, right? So we've got doctor chair treatment. So we're seeing these risk-tolerant folks now, but we're not seeing the risk-averse folks. And there's no guarantee or telling when they're going to come back in. And based on what I've seen in their mindsets and talking to my existing patients and other patients out there, I think this gap could last 3 to 6 months if we're not careful. Okay, if we just do nothing and let the cards fall where they may, that's a long period of time for you to be struggling to get patients into your chair, both on the doctor side and the hygiene side. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is what I think you should be doing right now to close that gap, because there are plenty of things you could be actively doing to shorten this time frame as much as possible to no gap whatsoever, or to try to minimize it to a couple of weeks at the most. And what I'm going to recommend is I want you to do some external marketing, and we're going to go into more detail on that, to try to attract more risk-tolerant folks, because there are plenty of people looking for a dentist right now to get in somewhere. They just don't know where to go or who's open. So we need to get the word out there that you are open and willing to see these patients, okay? And at the same time, we're going to start doing some internal marketing to our existing patient base to try to show them all the ways that they're going to be safe coming back in for treatment. So if we can find more risk-tolerant folks and extend the amount of time we see them, okay, from where we were originally, and we can get our risk-averse folks in the practice sooner, that's how we close that gap, okay, and minimize the amount of time we're going to have no patients in our chairs, both on the doctor side and the treatment side. And how do we do that, right? When it comes to marketing, both internally, externally, grassroots wise, how do we do that? And, it all comes from what I call the 7 pillars of marketing. And this is just a short little segment from a new book I'm writing called The Dental Marketing Cycle. And when I think about marketing to anybody in any format, in any medium whatsoever, whether it be external marketing, internal marketing, grassroots, I follow these 7 pillars. So it's all about understanding who your market is. Like who are you speaking to? What's their mindset, as an example, right? What's their demographic? Is it man versus female? Is it risk averse versus risk tolerant? Is it working versus retiree? Who is this person we want back in our practice, or we want more of in our practice? And once we understand who that person is and everything about them, then we can focus on what differentiating messages we're going to be using, the headlines of our story, if you will, to grab their attention in whatever advertisement they're looking at or listening to, right, to get their focus on us and make them more interested in picking up the phone and giving us a call. So we're going to talk about what messages are going to attract patients right now, both on the risk-averse side and the risk-tolerant side. Now, once we know the message we're going to put in front of them, the headline to grab their attention, then we're going to strategically pick the medium we think is going to give us the best shot to attract our ideal market. Okay. Now, these are the big 3: market, message, medium, and in that order that you need to follow. And it dictates the number of phone calls you're going to get, the quantity of new patient phone calls you're going to get as well. Okay. Once we get through this, then we can go into stuff like the content, what the ad, the details of the ad, or what we're going to say inside there as well. Many times we'll talk about an offer, like call to action offer, right, to get more quality new patients in the door. In a COVID-19 world, though, the good news is we don't really have to worry about offers. They're not really going to incentivize, right? If the people who are risk averse don't feel safe coming in, I don't care what offer you're going to put in front of them, they're not going to move. The risk tolerant folks are going to come in no matter what. So there's no need to even offer them an incentive or an offer. They're just looking literally for a place to go. So while normally an offer is important in differentiating the quality of the person that comes into your practice, not a price shopper or somebody who's going to still be in your chair 6 months later. In a COVID-19 marketing world, it doesn't matter as much. So I'm not really going to focus on it today. We are going to talk about how to add more influence to both sides of this. And some of Dr. Robert Cialdini's 6 Principles of Influence and Persuasion. Of course, you need to track it no matter what, because you don't know what you don't know, right? We need to know what's working, what's not working, and if it's not working, why. And those are those 7 pillars, okay? So the main 3 we're going to focus on are the market, the message, and the medium, and how we're going to target this risk-tolerant versus the risk-averse crowd, okay? So let's start with our first market, the ones we're seeing right now, the risk-tolerant folks. And it was hilarious because I remember we opened up our practice doors back in June, and lo and behold, we had all these safety precautions done. We had air purifiers set up in the reception area and in each of the operatories with the true medical HEPA grade filter. And we felt pretty good about ourselves and our PPE protocols, and we were our hazmat mask, our N95s, if you will, and we were ready to go. And we were trying to text patients and say, hey, look, we'll text you when it's okay to come up. Don't just walk into the office. And what happened? Lo and behold, we opened the doors and nobody listened to us. They didn't wait for us to text them. There was like 3 or 4 people standing in the waiting room. Nobody's wearing a mask. Nobody's asking anything about the precautions that we've taken, or they even care. And I was just looking at these people like, what in the world? And just talking to them, I realized that they didn't care, right? They weren't afraid. They were more tolerant to the risk of getting the virus at hand, okay? And these people tend to have a reactive mindset, right? These were people who thought that they had time. That's why they weren't getting their dental work done. If the wheels on the bus haven't fallen off yet, they're not going to get the bus fixed. So they thought forever, well, I know I've had this issue going on, but I'll get to a dentist's office at some point. I got time. Well, what they realized when we were shut down for 2 months was what? They didn't have time, okay? Because they couldn't get in anywhere. And because of the scarcity, them losing the ability to come in to see us, and now they're having dental issues developed, it got them uber motivated to get caught up, is another mindset these people have. Meaning those were the first ones back in our office, okay? And they are big about same-day dentistry. So it's really changed my whole mindset with these folks on how I treatment plan them. I've changed my mindset into comprehensive care treatment planning to treatment planning, what can I get done today? Because I'm going to try to do as much as I can and present as much as I can get done today. Because the odds of getting this patient mindset back into your office later are slim to none, okay? So you got to strike while the influence iron is hot. So I'm treatment planning same-day dentistry on these folks, so to speak. Okay. So what are we going to do? Well, our strategy here is because, they're high case acceptance because they're willing to say yes. They knew they've had problems that were building. Okay. And now they're just glad and thankful to be getting in somewhere. So our strategy here is we just got to find more of them, right? So you can do some internal marketing to try to motivate your existing patient base who are risk tolerant and have this reactive mindset. But to extend this gap, to reduce that time frame, so to speak, I want you to find more of these folks. So we're going to talk about some external marketing strategies to do that. But before we can pick the medium, right, we know who we're going to be talking to now, this risk tolerant reactive mindset. What are we going to say to them? Because we got to know what we're going to say to them, the headlines first, the message, if you will, before we pick our medium. So these are the messages that have always worked well for me in my 17 years in dental practice and marketing 4 different offices that I've owned to get more of these reactive patients in the door. And the first and foremost ones need to be this: call today, get in today. Okay, they need to know if you got an open chair and could get them in, we need to be spreading that message to as many as will listen to it, right? Because that's going to be enough of a headline to motivate many to pick up the phone and call because they want to get in somewhere. They just don't know where to go. Who can get them in? So if you have chair time that it's open, we need to share that message. Call today, get in today. Now that doesn't mean I guarantee I'm going to treat them today. Okay, I didn't say that. I just said I'd get them in because I know their focus on searching anywhere looking for dental offices who can get me in to figure out what my problem is. Okay. Now we'll tell them on the phone, look, we can't guarantee treatment, but we're going to get you in. Now, if we have time, we're going to start it. If we have time, we're going to finish it. Worst case scenario, we'll diagnose it, and if we need to, we'll manage it with antibiotics or pain pills or Advil, Tylenol protocols, etc., until we can fix it for you and take care of the problem. But these people's focus is on getting in. So share that message with them, and you're going to find more of these risk-tolerant folks abound. They want to see an office that does comprehensive care. So if you're like a super GP, or if you have specialists in your office and you offer specialty type services, you need to share that aspect. That is a huge draw to bring patients in right now. So they don't have to go to the oral surgeon. They don't have to go to the root canal specialist. They don't have to go back to your office later on. If they know that they can get a lot done in one place, that's going to draw more of these risk tolerant crowd folks to your office versus others. So the headline I've used is you don't have to go to 4 to 5 offices to get your work done. Now, that doesn't mean I take on cases that I don't feel comfortable doing. I still refer a lot out, but I have had a lot of training in all the specialty type services, and there's a lot I feel comfortable doing and have done so for the last 17 years. So if you're in the same boat like me and you feel comfortable with providing these services, then you need to share that with patients out there who are searching, who are trying to get a lot done in one location, so to speak. Never miss work or school to see the dentist, right? So schools are opening back up. People's schedules are all over the place. So if you've got expanded hours, I know several dentists have opened up their hours, trying to ride this wave, if you will, of the risk tolerant crowd while they can, eat while the eating's good, so to speak. Well, if you're offering these expanded hours or weekend hours, so people don't have to miss work or now that they're back or miss school, then share that. That's a powerful message to get more people there. If you've got a dental membership plan, I think right now is a powerful time to promote your dental membership plans. I know we've been promoting and selling a lot of those at our practice on these reactive patients. And now we've got a shot now that they've bought the membership plan. We're going to see them back in hygiene again. So they're not going to disappear for some extended period of time again. Because now once they bought the membership plan, we've anchored them back to our practice. And since they paid for it, they're going to be returning. Okay. So if you offer one of these things, make sure to be promoting that out there. Okay. And again, I would let people know, like, especially with companies today, because many businesses have lost so much money because of the shutdown, they're going to be looking for ways to get that expense back, right? To make more money in the interim. And one of the first things they're probably going to drop, many of these companies and small businesses are going to drop dental insurance. So a lot of people are going to be without dental insurance next year. So why aren't we planting the seeds of that right now and getting patients who might be at risk of that on our dental membership plans? Okay, these are powerful messages you could be using to attract more new patients. Maybe we could use Dr. Cialdini's consistency principle, meaning somebody who's made a commitment and taken a stand on an issue is more likely to follow through with a request that falls in line with that commitment that they've made. So how about ready to get back out there? So people who are already out there getting their hair done, getting their nails done, eating at restaurants, okay, if they've already made that commitment that they feel safe going to those places, which don't really have any precautions, not really, then why wouldn't they feel safe coming to the dental office? Because look at all the ways we're keeping people safe, right? So we need to remind people that, hey, if you're already doing this, which is less safe, why wouldn't you do this, which is even more safe? And just putting that little thought in their head, you're getting back out there, why not come back in to get your teeth cleaned, right? And see the dentist. We can influence and use Dr. Cialdini's principles of consensus or social proof. Now, many of you, because of the risk-tolerant crowd folks, have been slamming our offices right now and keeping us extremely busy and our chairs full. Many of us can't even see more new patients right now, right? So we want to share that with others out there. Due to this high demand, or we have hundreds of patients calling and scheduling us every month right now, so we can't even get you in right now if we want to. Okay, then we can use scarcity. So we have limited appointments available because we're in such high demand right now. So if you want to make an appointment with us, you better call us today to get in. And you're going to see how we're going to leverage this idea of consensus and social proof and scarcity to motivate the risk-averse crowd to try to get them back in sooner, as you're going to see. We've got authority agencies like the CDC and your state governments telling all businesses they need to decrease the number of people in their business. So limit the number of occupants. Well, guess what? That limits the number of people we can see per day. So we need to highlight the scarcity of appointments that we have due to the high demand and because of these agencies telling us we can only see so many people. We have to slow down our process so we can turn over our operatories, make sure they're clean, spray them down with the hypochlorous acid or whatever your protocols we're doing. But either way, whatever this information that we don't have a lot of appointment times and we can't see as many people is important to share to get more to motivated faster to pick up the phone and call you and not wait. Okay. So those are some messages that worked for me in the past to motivate that risk-tolerant crowd to find more of them and get them back into the practice. So now we know what to say to these people, but where we're going to say it. So what mediums are we going to use strategically to find more of these people? And what I want you to consider is like the order of things, right? So, normally for me, kind of online advertising would be last on my list of places I want to market for a numerous reasons. But in a post-COVID world, it's probably going to be my first choice of where to go because these risk-tolerant folks are impulse buyers. They are actively searching for information and they want to get it hot and now. Okay, so I'm going to be putting my messages where they're going to be looking to find their information. Okay, and for many of them, it's online. So this is where I might invest some money in Google AdWords. Community groups like Nextdoor that now have advertising. Communities like that, Nextdoor is just neighborhoods of people talking to each other. So that you got eyeballs present and engaged in this format, and now you can strategically put your messages in front of these people there. Maybe you want to look at pay-per-click advertising or Facebook advertising. But now's the time in my mind where I might be spreading some money in each of these little mediums and investing a certain amount, tracking it to see if I can find more of these risk-tolerant folks. I definitely recommend you got to update your website homepage. And that should be the first thing people see because it's going to be the risk-tolerant folks looking for an office now. You need to have information there about that you're seeing people in dental emergencies and using some of those messages that we just covered, okay? That should be like the first thing on your homepage that risk-tolerant crowd is going to see when they land there. So if you haven't updated it, you need it updated. After that, if there's still money in the budget, then I'd start looking at some other mediums. Newsletters, I've used Patient News, and many of my clients have used them for newsletters. Postcards would be a good way to do some external marketing, because you can do targeted lists that way, trying to find more of these reactive people. I've always had great success with radio, and I've advertised with this local group, the Matt and Mona Show, for years, and I've got people who listen to the radio for their information. I had one guy one time who came to see me for sedation, and he drove over 57 miles to come to my practice. And I asked him, I was like, dude, why did you come here? And he said, well, truthfully, nobody in my town does sedation, but I heard Matt and Ramona talking about you on the radio, and that's why I decided to come here, because I needed sedation. And I start Googling sedation in this guy's town, and there's like 10 dentists in his town alone that did the same sedation dentistry I was doing. So this guy was a good example of that. Not everybody gets their information from the internet, right? Some people get it from radio. Some people get it from TV. So they may be other sources you may want to consider. But if I am doing radio, I like to do the celebrity endorsement. All right. I don't like necessarily me doing my own commercial or the standard radio announcer, come on down to Dr. Phelps Dentistry, doing a commercial for me. I want the celebrity endorsement because it's somebody who does the drive into work show or the drive home from work show. Because the people that listen to these shows think these celebrities are their friends, right? They think they know them. And so if this celebrity says, hey, go see Dr. Phelps, then it's almost like a paid referral, right? And patients are like, oh, that's who they trust? Well, that's where I'm going to go as well. So I'm going to do radio, but I'm going to do celebrity endorsement radio as well. But this is kind of my priority for you. I'd spend money in the online mediums first. Definitely update your webpage and get some information, get those messages for the risk tolerant crowd on there first. And then if there's money left over in your budget, then consider expanding into external marketing with newsletters, direct mail kind of stuff, postcards, maybe consider some other mediums like radio and whatnot. And then the last thing I'd be doing, at least because it's free, is doing some internal marketing. So again, trying to send these messages to my existing patients in an email, in a newsletter, in a postcard, whatever format you choose, but trying to find these people in my own crowd, right? If you've already got them. As I said, if you've been in practice 20 years, you probably got a lot of these folks, okay, that you can lean on and get in to extend the time you're going to see these risk tolerant folks and reduce your gap that way. But if you haven't been in practice for many years, okay, you're going to have to spend more money in the external marketing realm to find more of these people and attract them. And here's an advertisement one of my coaching clients came up with based on this talk I gave them. And I just thought it was genius, right? Ready to get back out there. Like you're already getting your nails done. You're getting your nails done. Why wouldn't you get your teeth done? Okay. And there's some scarcity. Don't waste your dental benefits. Due to the COVID-19, we have a backlog of patients. Secure your spot before they're gone for the year, right? Those are all scarcity ways of showing that we don't have a lot of appointments available. So you better move now if you're thinking about getting into the dental office while you can. So just a great example. When they've updated their website, so the first thing you see when you land on their homepage is a lot of these messages, both in video and written content, right, for the risk-tolerant crowd and emergencies and how they're going to take care of emergencies and how they can do the comprehensive care, how they can do a lot of procedures in one office to maximize their visit, okay? So these are the things, using external marketing, updating your website, et cetera, to try to find more of the risk-tolerant crowd and extend the time you're going to see them. So let's finish up talking about the other side, those patients who are not coming in right now, the risk-averse mindset and who this market is. Well, these predominantly are the people who fill our chairs normally before COVID-19. They have the proactive mindset that we desire. They want to do the fillings in the crown so it doesn't turn into a root canal or an implant or something down the road. But the problem is there's an uncertainty in their mind right now that is keeping them from coming into our practice. And there's two main barriers that are creating this uncertainty. Uncertainty about their safety, about contracting the virus, okay, and they're seeing the safety concern everywhere, okay, and fear of another outbreak or resurgence now that schools have opened back up. And here we are leading into an election. And of course, there's concern of people that they go out to vote, they're going to get sick, so to speak. And so there's a fear of another outbreak or resurgence coming that's also keeping this crowd from coming back in to see our office. They're on a watch and wait mindset and mentality. And of course, the media is not helping because the patients out there are seeing messages that, people are opening up and schools are opening up and look what happened. Outbreaks everywhere. Things are shutting down. So even in my own alma mater, UNC Chapel Hill, right, this message came out. They came, they saw, they clustered. Now they have to shut down, right? They've gone to total remote learning, so to speak. So keep an eye on the headlines out there, because this is what the risk averse crowd is being exposed to. And it's going to cause them to hunker down and anchor themselves deeper into not coming into our offices if we're not careful and if we don't do something to counter that. So how do we do that? Well, I know many of you are taking safety precautions right now. Are you not? I've seen this picture on the internet going around on Facebook and whatnot, and I think it's hilarious. Some people choose to practice that way. I think government agencies, based on the recommendations they gave us, this is how they picture how we should be treating patients in our practice. This looks like a spider's den, if you will, or we're like stuck in a spider's web. But there's a lot of truth, and we have taken some safety precautions, so to speak, with our N95 mask, hypochlorous acid, cleaning regimens, and whatever you're using. I know in our practice, as I said, we're using air purification, so UV filters in the air to screen out bacteria, viruses, and fungus, and true medical HEPA grade filters as well to try to grab those virus particle sizes. I thought this was a good example of telling people how you're keeping them safe. When I went to a pizza place called Bricks, this was sitting on our table, and they said, "Hey, this table has been sanitized for your safety." And I thought, was it never sanitized before? Was I always sitting down to a dirty table? But no, of course, we know it's always being clean, but just bringing that to the top of mind that, oh, by the way, I know you may take it for granted, but we have sanitized this. So you should feel secure that this table has been cleaned and there's no coronavirus at this table, so to speak. And I thought, well, you know what, that's actually a pretty good idea to show people, bring it top of mind how you're keeping them safe and continue to keep them safe. So why wouldn't we do something like that in our operatories, right? I thought that might be a good idea. So our headlines to attract more of this risk-averse crowd are all going to be revolving around telling or showing patients about all the precautions we've taken. Not just telling them we've taken precautions, we got to tell them or show them each of the things that we've done in as many detail as possible. Okay, we want to use authority triggers like the CDC and the ADA or your state's local government, or whatever guidelines your governor set or whatever. And in our practice, we try to go above and beyond what these agencies, these authority triggers where the people look to as trusted sources for information. We want to let them know that this is what the ADA and the CDC and whoever recommends for safety, but we've gone above that, above and beyond. Here's all the things that we've done. Okay, so we want to highlight our authority by showing patients that we've gone above and beyond that. You know what? Our virus is a new thing for dentistry, okay? Our virus is a new thing to our country. No, right? It seems like every 2 to 4 years, there's some big threat or fear of a viral outbreak. And if you've been practicing long enough, you know what I'm talking about, right? Were you around for the swine flu epidemic? Okay. How about the bird flu, the avian flu? Oh, the H1N1 scare. Anybody remember that one? Okay. How about SARS, right? Look at this ad on Newsweek. SARS, can it be stopped? The new age of epidemics, right? So viruses are not new to dentistry. These pandemics are not new to dentistry. So what we want to do is remind patients that you're safe with us. Viruses are not new to the dental office. And in each of these situations and examples, not one time was a viral outbreak traced back to the dental office. No one proved that going to the dentist during these outbreaks put you at more risk. Why? Because we know all the precautions we're taking keep us and our patients safe. And now we've just elevated that to a whole new level. So we want to show patients this commitment that, hey, you've been coming to see us in viruses in the past and other outbreaks. This is no different. And in fact, we're doing even more to keep you safe because of that. So these are the headlines and the messages I want you to get out there to your patients, your risk-averse crowd, to make them feel more comfortable coming back in to see you sooner. Another thing I want you to do is leverage this social proof, this idea, because many people look to what others are doing to show them what they should be doing, right? So your patients sitting at home don't know your office is busy right now. They think it's like crickets, that nobody's standing out front of your office. When in fact, we know because of the risk tolerant crowd, most of us are slammed right now. I mean, our schedules are packed full, okay? So we need to share that information with this risk-averse crowd and let them know, hey, by the way, we are slammed right now. In fact, we know you're overdue, and I'm sorry to tell you, we can't even get you in right now if we had to. We're just too busy. There's too many patients coming in right now. That's why we're reaching out to you now to try to schedule you and reserve you a time for October or for November. Okay, so we want to try to book you for a month or two out just to reserve a spot. If not, then we're going to use scarcity. We may not be able to get you into the before the end of this year. It may be next year before we're going to be able to see you. Okay, so we want to show them that we have a high demand, but also highlight that we have a limited appointments available because of that. And there's not a lot of time left between now and the end of the year, and that we want to get you in while we can. And if we can use this social proof and scarcity, we may be able to motivate more of this risk-averse crowd to book and fill up our empty hygiene chairs in October and November and get them back into the cycle, so to speak. I want to focus on the mouth-body connection. Healthy mouth, healthy body is a great headline, right? The best way to fight COVID is to be as healthy as possible. I want you to leverage relationships, right? They should be getting postcards or emails from each of your hygienists individually with their picture that says something like, I miss you. Or maybe it's a picture of you and your hygienist, right? Whoever they have the best relationships in the office saying, hey, I miss you. We miss you. Let's get you back in. We know you're overdue. We know we don't have a lot of time left for the end of the year. We're concerned about you. So kind of leverage that relationship you and your team members have with your patients to try to reactivate those risk-averse crowd from getting in sooner, okay? Getting them back in sooner, so to speak. The only way we can fight the headlines out there that are working against us, like the WHO saying don't go to the dentist, is to find data and scientific evidence where actually it is in their best interest scientifically to come to the dentist and not wait. You know, articles like this, bleeding, swollen gums linked to severe COVID-19 cases. I saw one the other day about how, you know, people aren't getting their teeth cleaned as much. They may have more severe symptoms for COVID-19 on top of that, in addition to bleeding gums and such. So find these articles and post that in your messages internally to your existing patient base, okay? They're going to see, oh, the risk benefit. Well, if I wait, I'm actually might not be as strong to fight the virus. I might have more severe symptoms if I get the virus, and the dentist is going to keep me safe. So you know what? Maybe I should make the decision, go ahead and go in now, okay? We can use our use it or lose it message, right? We've only got like 3 months left, so to speak, before the end of the year. So let's start getting that out there. If they have dental insurance, they don't come in, they're going to lose it, right? Because of the high demand that we have, we may not be able to get you until next year. And I want to plant that seed with this crowd as well, that while you may have dental insurance this year, you may not have it next year, right? Because businesses are going to be looking to recoup those losses, and dental insurance is an easy expense they can cut next year. So if you have dental insurance, why not use it while you can before it's gone, so to speak. So these are some great scarcity headlines you could use in messages to try to attract more of this risk-averse crowd and get them in sooner to your practice. And of course, the mediums we're going to use to put these messages, the main one for me is internal marketing. You should be blasting this right now in emails and newsletters or a postcard format, whatever format you choose, but it should at a minimum be an email and some kind of direct mail, either a newsletter or a postcard, because some people get their information from both sources. They look at emails versus they look at things that come to them in the mail from their doctor. So I want to do a heavy internal marketing campaign to these people using these risk-averse messages we discussed. I want you to update your website, and there should be a page dedicated to all the ways and things you're doing to keep them safe in your dental practice, and reference that in your messages to them in your internal marketing pieces. Don't wait, right? Even though don't wait till October to fill October. Don't wait till November to fill November's empty schedule. You should be doing this now, okay? Now, both on the hygiene side and the doctor treatment side. Start communicating with them now, and especially now that school's back open, and the dust is kind of settling on that, and we're not seeing outbreaks everywhere, which is great news. People are going to be more receptive to scheduling. Now, after the internal marketing and updating your website, if your budget allows, then you might want to consider spending a little money on the external marketing world, doing a newsletter or postcard campaign to the risk-averse people in your area who may also be looking for a dental change, so to speak. But for me, that's kind of on the back burner. I want you to spend more of your time internal marketing to your risk-averse crowd and external marketing to find more of the risk-tolerant crowd, okay? And the messages you put on your direct mail pieces, whether in email format or direct mail, are you safe at the dentist, right? Highlight for them all the ways that you're keeping them safe. And I want you to start talking to patients who are coming in now, and I want you to get Google reviews. Number one, because the Google reviews, of course, are going to automatically increase your search rankings. And when people are searching for you on the internet, you're automatically going to come up higher and sooner because of that. But I want you to ask your patients this: if they do a Google review for them, have them mention why they felt safe coming into the dentist's office despite COVID-19 and the risk, right? Those are going to be great reviews to get, focused around why they feel safe and why they felt safe coming in to see you today. Okay, those are the reviews and testimonials I want you to put on your messages to share from a social proof and an authority standpoint with your existing patient base. Because they're going to read, look at all those people. There's 4 or 5 testimonials here about why they felt safe coming in right now. Maybe I'll be safe coming in there as well. Okay, so try to ask your patients when they do a review, to do it around this idea of why did you feel safe coming in to see us today? Okay. It's going to pay you back in dividends. So update your website. One of my clients totally did videos on how they're keeping you safe above all, and they go through and detail it, what their protocols are going to be, how it's going to work when you come to our office from check-in, get a text, and check out, so to speak. They've done videos on all the different safety measures that they've taken, all the PPE, N98 respirators better than N95. Okay. Their air and water quality, air purification. I mean, whatever it is that you've done, there needs to be a page on your website dedicated to these things so patients can see how you're keeping them safe. Okay. So to wrap up, if we do some external marketing, okay, and some internal marketing to find the risk tolerant crowds, to motivate more of our existing patients who are risk tolerant to come in, that's the internal marketing side. Or do more external marketing to attract more of these risk tolerant folks, we're going to extend the time period we're going to see them. Okay. At the same time, if we start communicating mostly internally to our existing patient base who are risk averse, telling them all the ways we're going to keep them safe, okay, highlighting the social proof of how busy we are today, and that's why we want to schedule you for tomorrow or next month, highlighting the scarcity of we don't have a lot of appointments available, or we may not be able to get to see you until next year, or your insurance may disappear, so use it while you can. Right? Using these messages to attract more of the risk-averse crowd and get them in sooner, that's how we're going to close this gap in patient treatment. All righty. So throughout the presentation, you've heard me talk about this man, Dr. Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book Influence, the Science and Practice over 34 years ago. And I've referenced many times throughout the presentation his 6 principles of influence and persuasion. So what are these principles that Dr. Cialdini so masterfully came up with during his research in the behavioral science arena? Well, these principles, as we see, are kind of the building blocks or kind of the foundation of what we're using to make our decisions. You've probably heard of several of these: reciprocity, liking, consensus or social proof, authority, consistency, and of course, most people have heard of this one, scarcity. So let's get into these real quick as our wrap up today, and we'll relay these back to the presentation that I just gave. So what is reciprocity? Well, reciprocity is as old as time, right? It implies that if someone gives you a gift of value or significance to you, there's an obligation that's created inside of us that we feel the need to give back in kind to what we were given. So if somebody gives you something, we feel the need to give back in return. Somebody does a favor for you, you feel the need to do a favor for them, that kind of thing. So, how can we use reciprocity in this kind of post-COVID-19 world in some of our marketing messages and such to both the risk-averse and the risk-tolerant mindset patients? Well, I know there's a big trend right now in dentistry. Some of the insurance companies are recommending this, that we charge a fee for the PPE that we're providing our patients, or the extra PPE that we've had to, costs that we've had to incur for doing dentistry, or N95 masks and face shields and all the technologies and equipment we purchase to keep our patients safe. And they're recommending that you charge anywhere from $15 to $25 per patient to help offset that expense for you. But as we all know, while it'd be great to cover that expense, with social media today, I've already read so many patient forums where the patients are finding out about this extra fee that we're charging them, and they're not happy. Okay. So if the masses are doing one thing, like when most people zig, I tend to like to zag anyway. And we can kind of leverage reciprocity in that aspect of it. So what if we made a message to our patients that said something to the effect of, hey, what if instead of charging a PPE fee, we opted not to charge for that and told them we're giving them that as our gift to them? In essence, while others are charging $15 to $25 for the increased cost of equipment to keep you safe, as our gift to you, we've chosen to not charge you that or raise our fees accordingly. So you'll still get the same care and benefit and safety at our practice, but without the added expense. I think it'd be a great way to leverage reciprocity in this post-COVID-19 world. We've got the liking principle. People like to do business with people they like. Right? And liking is all about relationships. So we like those who are like us, who have similarities or commonalities. And we like those who like us and tell us or show us that they like us, so to speak. So it's all about those relationships. So my advice here, as I mentioned earlier, is to find somebody in your practice, whoever has the best relationship with your patients, and they need to be the one communicating with them, trying to reactivate your existing patient base who's risk averse. Leveraging that relationship might get some of those who were scared to come in sooner, so to speak, right? Because they trust that other person that's reaching out to them, the one they have that best relationship with, because they like them. right? That's why I like to put a picture of that person, your hygienist or the dentist, whoever has the best relationship, and have a postcard sent to the patient or an email saying, hey, I or we miss you. Oral health's important. You can't ignore it. Let's get you back in, of course, and then leverage some of the other principles while we still can, so to speak. So we like those who like us. So find out who the patients like in your practice or who are liked by your patients and have them reach out to them, start communicating with them. Consensus or social proof is a big one, as we mentioned. Consensus or social proof means many times we look to the evidence what others around us are doing to see what we should be doing, right? Think of it, it's like a protective mechanism. Like think of fish out in nature or animals that herd together. Fish in the ocean kind of school together in packs, if you will, for safety, right? Because they know if there's somebody swimming out there by themselves, they're likely to get eaten or hurt, so to speak. But there's safety in numbers. So if people see others doing a certain behavior, it makes them feel more comfortable and safe doing it as well. So right now, those risk-averse patients, as we mentioned, think that your practice is a ghost town. They think nobody's there. Well, if you're like my practice and most of the practices I talk to, we're slammed with those risk-tolerant patients filling up all of our chairs. So why don't we share that with our patients and let them know, hey, this is the high demand time right now. Or due to the high demand, we're reaching out to you today to make sure we get you a spot for tomorrow. Because those spots tomorrow are almost gone. And the spots the next day are almost gone, right? We may not even be able to get you until the end of the year. But again, highlighting this fact that it is a high demand time. You got a lot of people coming and calling your offices is going to be key to influencing more people, more especially that risk averse crowd, to coming back into your practice. What about authority? Okay. Well, authority is all about we look to credible, trustworthy experts to tell us what we should do. Because the truth is we don't have time to be an expert in everything. But it's also about authority triggers, things that signify your status as an expert or say someone of success and that kind of thing. And so what we want to do is leverage some of these authority triggers with our gadgets, our technology, the stuff we've invested in to keep our patients safe. But also if there's certain authority triggers or authority agencies the public is looking to for information, like the American Dental Association, the CDC, our state dental boards, et cetera, right? If you've gone above and beyond their recommendations for the precautions that you're taking, well, we want to share that fact with our patients, let them know, hey, you're looking to these sources as the go-to source to trust for info. Well, here's what they recommend. Well, here's what we're doing. We're going above and beyond that. And I like what one of my coaching clients here did. While the agencies are saying we need N95 masks, so they took it a step further and got N98 masks, which I guess are better quality or better than N95. I didn't even know that was a thing. Apparently it is. So, but if you're using that and you're going above those recommendations, you got to share it with them. And when you're investing in technologies like extra oral suction units, right? Or your better sterilization protocols, like using hypochlorous acid treatments to keep it, to kind of spray down the operatory to disinfect it, or using true medical grade HEPA and UV filters to keep people safe. Again, we want to highlight that fact for our patients so they see that we can be a trusted source as well. Okay. Now, consistency is a big one, right? And consistency is all about commitments. So it's when people take a stand on an issue, there's a lot of external and internal pressure on them to stay consistent and follow through and do with what they said they were going to do. And this is true if we kind of think about the opposite of the word consistency, right? What do we call people who are not consistent or who are inconsistent? Well, wishy-washy, flakes, but there's a big one that nobody wants to be associated with, liars. Okay. So nobody wants to be associated as a liar. So that's why when people do take a stand on an issue, so to speak, and make a commitment, they tend to follow through with it. But it's also about reminding people about the commitments that they're already making and they've already done, the actions they've already taken, so to speak. And if those actions fall in line with what you're going to be asking them, it's going to be hard for them to say no. So that's why I brought up the fact that if people are already going out there, getting their hair done, getting their nails done, they're the ones frequenting restaurants right now, not only outside, but also inside. Okay, these are our target markets for the risk-tolerant folks. Well, if they're already doing these behaviors, and even some of our risk-averse crowd are doing some of these, right, then why wouldn't they come to the dental office? Those places aren't taking any precautions to keep them safe, and we're going above and beyond to take precautions to keep them safe, right? So just showing them if you're already committed to doing these activities, why wouldn't you do this as well when we've got you uber protected on top of that, right? And it's also to remind them that this is not our first rodeo, okay? Viruses are not new to the dental office, right? We have had numerous viral outbreaks in our country, from the avian flu to the swine flu, H1N1, SARS, right? You name it. And viruses are not new to us. So we need to show people and remind them that, you know what, I'm pretty sure they did not stop going to the dentist during any of those other viral outbreaks. So why would they stop going now? Viruses aren't new to us. There's never been a reported outbreak of any kind of virus from a dental office that I know of. So we need to be sharing that fact with people and letting them know this is not new. And you've already been committed to going to the dental office during other viral outbreaks before. This is no different because we're going to keep you safe, and here's why. So reminding them of their past behavior is also a way to get them to come back in sooner with that risk-averse crowd, okay? And leveraging this consistency principle to its fullest. We've got the scarcity principle, right? And most of you know this one. Scarcity is about resources, right? When resources are truly limited or dwindling or running out, suddenly it motivates us to want to do more to get it. And picture yourself right now, right? If whatever room you're in watching this, if the oxygen was running out of your room right now, how many of you would prefer to know that it was running out before it happens versus when it happens, right? And I would hope that most of you would prefer to know before it happens, okay, versus when it's happening. Why? Because if you know before it's going to happen, it's going to motivate you to do something about it. And that's what scarcity really is all about. It's about a drive for resources. So when those are true resources that could be life or death are running out, it motivates you to do something. The problem is our brain can't tell the difference between true life or death resources running out versus when I stand in line at Starbucks and I'm looking at the little counter there of food and there's normally 5 or 6 slices of the banana loaf bread. I can resist it. Yet when there is only 1 slice of the banana loaf bread there, suddenly I want banana loaf bread. Okay, because in my head, I think it's about to run out. Our brain can't tell the difference in levels of scarcity. It just knows if something's running out, suddenly we want it more. Okay, but scarcity starts by sharing that you have something scarce or dwindling or rare. Okay, so think about it this way, right? We've got all these authority agencies like the CDC, the ADA, our state boards asking us to increase the time it's taking to sterilize and clean our operatories between patients. All right, well, that means that's less people we can see if we got to take more time to turn over our rooms. They've asked us to try to limit the number of people at our offices at any given number of time. That's why we're texting people to come in and whatnot, and increasing the time we're booking for each appointment so that we can keep less people in the office. Now we got the social proof. We got higher demands than ever and higher call volumes than ever because of these patients who've been waiting and dying to get in for months, trying to find a place to get in somewhere. Right? So we need to share that information that because these agencies have limited the number of people we can even have for these reasons and the high demand, we don't have a lot of spots open, right? That's why we're calling you today to try to schedule you for next month or the next month. Because if we don't, we may not be able to get you until the end of the year. So highlight the fact that you've got a limited number of appointments available tomorrow, right? And the next day. And because today is out of the question, we couldn't get you in today if we had to. And that will motivate more people to move and come back in sooner than later. Remind them of the insurance stuff, right? If they've had dental insurance and they haven't used any of their benefits for treatment, well, guess what? Here in a couple months, that's gone, right? December 31st, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I usually around this time in September, I'll drop my "you're about to lose $1,000" message in a postcard campaign to my existing patient base. Well, we can do the same again to try to reactivate some of those who know they have work that needs to get done, but want that dental insurance premium to be used. And plant the seed. Hey, use your insurance while you can, because next year you might not have it, because there are a lot of businesses that are going to be dropping the dental insurance premium next year to try to recoup some of their losses from this year. So remind them, hey, use it while you can, and use it because you may not have it next year. Those are all great scarcity messages you can be sharing with your patients moving forward. Okay. So I hope those make sense. There's all kinds of ways to leverage Dr. Robert Cialdini's 6 principles of influence and persuasion. We talked about the couple of mindset things where people are going through, being risk tolerant, being risk averse, proactive mindset, people who want to avoid things getting worse, versus being a reactive mindset, versus people that are okay with things getting worse as long as it doesn't hurt today. But there's so many powerful ways to use these, right? And that's why I have the whole 3-day course on this topic. 2 days on the principles of persuasion for dentistry, which covers all of Dr. Cialdini's 6 principles of influence, and how to apply these to the dental practices to solve the issues that we ran into, the issues I ran into in my offices, from decreasing no-shows, getting more patients to pay today, scheduling more treatment and increasing case acceptance, increasing reviews and referrals. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. to now I've got a one-day topic on persuasion called Moment Maker, on how to reshape mindsets. Get that person in the right mindset, so whatever mindset they walked into your office with, that suddenly disappears, and we have them re-anchored and refocused on their dental health and in a mindset that's more receptive to your treatment recommendations you're going to be offering. So, I did a beta test this past maybe 2 months ago, and for the first time ever, live streamed the 3-day workshop. So the 2-day persuasion and the 1-day persuasion workshops, and it went pretty well. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to keep people engaged online for 3 full days, but if you can read the testimonials and reviews from the doctors that took it, I think you'll see we did a pretty good job. So I'm doing it again. We're doing the 2-day course for persuasion October 16th and 17th, and the 1-day persuasion Moment Maker mindset course on October 30th. Obviously, it's going to be a whole lot cheaper than being here in person, less flights and those kind of things. So we'll be live streamed. If you can't make it live, just let us know. We've got some accommodations for you there. But there's a registration link that you can use to look into this. Or you can, of course, always email me at Dr. Phelps Helps, and I'll be happy to review that and go over it with you as well. And last but not least, of course, with all this demand, right, I know people and offices are down, support teams, many staff members didn't come back to work, or because we've added more time to our appointments, added more things we need our teams to do to follow up on. I've seen some of the same old problems popping up, and our inability to answer the phone, especially from new patient calls, is that secret killer that's just destroying most of your practices right now. It's stifling your growth. So whatever you do, whoever you use, track it and make sure. But I know the average office doesn't answer a third to sometimes half of their new patient phone calls as it is, and that was before a high demand time. So you can only imagine what it is now. So get some help, right? If you need some help, there's plenty of call centers out there, but I encourage you to check out mine. Of course, I am biased, but we do have the highest call percentage conversion rates in the industry and the highest share rates for a reason. We're not the cheapest, but in my opinion, we are the best. So check it out, whether we can be the first to grab those new patient calls for you, or at least back up to the team so you're not missing any new patient opportunities. They're just too critical right now for you guys to miss out on, and I'd hate for any of you to go through that. And so I appreciate your time today. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions after this, feel free to email me at chris@drphelpshelps.com. If you need info on Golden Goose, support at goldengoosescheduling.com. And if you're interested in any of my online on-demand and in-person dental practice coaching, check out strategicdentalpractice.com. In my coaching program, I know my coaching clients this year, despite being shut down 2 months, are on pace to either match last year's revenue and production and collections, or many of them are set to beat it as well. So I really hope and pray that your practice is going to have the same success this year as we wrap up the last quarter of the year. So if you need me, reach out at chris@drphelpshelps.com. And appreciate your time.
All right, let's talk. Your biggest bottleneck in scheduling overdue dental appointments is your phone. On average, it takes 21 phone calls to get an existing patient scheduled. Now let's face it, who likes to make dozens of calls that would go to the voicemail? Even if you had all the time in the world, which you don't. When you aren't scheduling recare appointments and unscheduled treatments, you're giving up thousands of dollars of revenue every single month. CallForce is the only dental scheduling service that offers recall scheduling, call answering, chat management, and dental treatment booking. They work within your own system to ensure that appointments are scheduled appropriately. CallForce clients can see an average return of 10 times their investment. Nifty Thrifty members get $100 off your first 2 months of service. So let CallForce make your calls. Visit getcallforce.com and give them a call to schedule a demo or learn more. Our next speaker is the founder of Front Office Rocks, Laura Nelson. Laura Nelson, formerly known as Laura Hatch, is an award-winning international speaker and the founder of Front Office Rocks. Front Office Rocks is a virtual training platform for dental teams that teaches office systems and methods to help practices achieve exceptional customer service. With her interactive and innovative approach, As a leader of Dental Office Solutions, Laura has mentored thousands of dentists and dental team members to achieve unprecedented results in growth and empower dentists and office managers to excel at performance-based hiring. An accomplished recruiting and management coach and a highly renowned keynote speaker, she is the best-selling author of Step Away from the Drill, a book that's helped dentists understand and embrace the business side of dentistry. Laura is a member of the National Speaker Association, the Speaking Consultant Network, the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, and a fellow of the American Association of Dental Office Managers. She has been the winner of competitions sponsored by Dentistry's Got Talent and Speaking Consulting Network. Laura has also been recognized as one of the Dental Product Report's top 25 women in dentistry. She currently lives in Coronado, California with her husband, Chris. Laura Nelson will be presenting Rock Your Revenue with Reactivation.
Hi, my name is Laura Nelson. You may recognize me as somebody else. My name prior to quarantine and getting shut down was Laura Hatch. I did have a COVID wedding and have changed my name to Laura Nelson. So I am so excited to be here. Love the fact that Glenn and his team are putting on this seminar. And I'm excited that I got asked to speak. So what I'm going to talk about in the session today is we're going to talk about reactivation. And reactivation is a topic that is I love even prior to us having to shut down for a few months, because it's something that I think a lot of offices don't put enough attention on. I think we're so focused on new patients and about, case acceptance with new patients that we forget about our current patients. We forget about the ones that we really, we've worked hard to get in, we love, and then we let them fall out the back door. We let them disappear, which I'm going to talk about. So this seminar today that I'm going to talk about, or what we're going to go over, is Rock Your Revenue with Reactivation. And I'm super excited that you guys are here. So let me see how I can get my PowerPoint to go forward. There we go. It's working. So I want to thank you guys for being here. And I have this slide up because I know that most of you probably, if you're like me, have a million things that you could be doing. I don't know about you guys, but when I joined dentistry, I really should have taken stock and sticky note, because my desk is covered with plenty of things that I could be doing. But you're here with me, so I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you got involved in this seminar and in this conference, and I'm hoping that you can walk away with some tips and tricks, things that maybe either you already knew but forgot about, things that you didn't know, and ideas of how you can work on reactivation for your practice. So my focus is really on the team. I love you, dentists, but really when it comes down to it, it's about the team and giving the team the best opportunity to knowing how to do what they need to do. And the reason is I believe the team is the heart and soul of the practice. And this story that I want to share with you is one about my mother, and what really brought home to me how important the team is in everything that we do in our practice. So this is a picture that is represents my mom. It's not actually my mom. I try to protect my mom's identity, but it's a picture of my mom, or representing my mom, to remind me of a story that my mom told me that really, it's outside of dental, but it ties to us 100%. And that was when a couple years ago, my mom ended up in the hospital. My mom she's a very sweet old lady. If you passed her on the street, you'd be like, Laura, I don't know what you're talking about, but she has a very short temper. If she doesn't get things the way she's supposed to, if she gets bad customer service, she can have a lot of anxiety. And because of that, she ended up in the hospital. She was having heart issues. She had been seeing a cardiologist and things weren't going well, and she had an episode and ended up in the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and after a bunch of tests and things, found out that the doctor that she was seeing had her on the wrong medicine. And we had a new cardiologist that put her on the right medicine, did the right tests, and she is doing great. So my mom, of course, switched to the new cardiologist. Now, a couple weeks after that episode in the hospital, I called and followed up with my mom and said, how are things going with how are you feeling? And how are things going with your new cardiologist? And she's like, awful. Terrible. I refuse to go to him again. Never, ever again will I go see him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he must have totally misdiagnosed something. He must have done something incorrectly. Like, oh my gosh, what happened, right? So my mom proceeds to tell me a story about how she was going in for a follow-up visit. She goes every 2 weeks to the doctor, and she scheduled it Thursday afternoon at 3:30 because she knew she was going to go there and then meet my dad for dinner afterwards, and he golfs on Thursday. So she spends the day around the apartment getting ready. She gets dressed, gets in her car, goes across town, 30 minutes to the doctor's appointment. Walks in about 3:20, and the two girls are standing behind the desk and they're whispering to each other, and they say, oh, ma'am, have a seat. We'll be right with you. So my mom sits down and she starts reading her magazine. And then about 3:35, she notices that the girls are now, hover down below the monitors and they're whispering. And they reach their head out and they say, are you Mrs. Yerrick? And she says, yeah. And they said, ma'am, what are you doing here? And so my mom stands up and walks to the counter and she says, well, I have an appointment. And they said, no, ma'am, you don't have an appointment today. She says, no, I do. I have an appointment at 3:30 today. It's a follow-up appointment. The doctor, I come every 2 weeks, and we had scheduled it for Thursday at 3:30. And the girl said, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. You actually have an appointment tomorrow at 3:30. And my mom's like, no, I know it's today. My husband golfs. It's on Thursday. I specifically scheduled this appointment Thursday to meet my husband afterwards. I know it's today. And the lady said behind the desk, no, I'm sorry, ma'am, it's tomorrow. So my mom, I'm glad I kind of wasn't there. I'm sure I would have been embarrassed. My mom loses her temper a little bit and says, listen, I know it was scheduled today. I remember the appointment card. You guys scheduled it on Thursday. Is there any way you can squeeze me in? It's a quick visit. I've driven across town. I'm here already. Is there any way I can be squeezed in? And the girl said, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. You have to come back tomorrow. And my mom stormed out and refused to go back to that doctor. Now, I'm not saying whether they handled that appointment correctly or not. I don't know what the cardiologist schedule's like. I don't know, how they do it in a cardiologist office. But I do know that my mom refuses to go to that doctor because of the way the girls handled that appointment. And my question to you is, do you think that that doctor has any idea? Do you think that doctor knows that my mom refuses to go see him now because of the way they handled the schedule? Absolutely not, right? So when she told me that story, I thought that is completely us, right? How we handle our patients makes such a huge difference. And people refuse sometimes to come back to our practices because the way that the appointment went, or because the something that happened when they were there. So it's a huge impression. It's a huge part of what we do as the team members to make sure that our patients continually come back into the practice. Now, I asked my mom, is there any way you could go back? Like maybe you could email the doctor or you could call the office manager and talk to them about the scenario. And my mom said, well, I did go back. She said, I called your dad, I canceled dinner, and then I drove all the way back to the apartment and I went through my junk drawer and I found that appointment card that said, it's Thursday at 3:30, and I got back in the car and I drove back across town and I went in and I put it on the counter and said, I told you it's Thursday at 3:30, right? And we've all had patients that do that. So no knock against my mom, but it made me just think about why we are here. And if you don't know already, I didn't plan to get into dentistry. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I don't know a lot of team members who thought when they were a kid, like, oh, let's see, what do I want to be when I get older? I think I want to be a dental office manager. I think I want to be a dental assistant. I think I want to be a scheduler of a dental office, right? Maybe if you're a doctor or hygienist, you thought that, but a lot of us didn't know we were going to get in this industry. And we kind of got thrown into it. We sort of just, whether we were an assistant that got moved up front, whether we were a patient who they loved and we got hired, whether in my case, I was married to a dentist for 22 years, so I became the dental spouse, whatever the scenario is, we became dental professionals, but we didn't have a lot of input when it comes to training and running dental offices, right, in our positions. So that's why I'm here. I'm the founder of Front Office Rocks, but I originally got thrown into dentistry because I married a guy and he went to dental school. And that's how I got my start in dentistry. He opened a practice in 2002 and said to me, you know what? I need an office manager. You should quit your job and come run the practice for me. And that's how I got into dentistry. Now, my background is human resources, organizational development. I have a business background. My intention was never to work in a dental office, but here I am. And after 5 or 7 years of doing that, realized that what we really needed was training for our team members. I didn't know anything about teeth. I didn't know anything about codes. I didn't know anything about surfaces, but I knew about customer service. I knew about running a business, organization, training, hiring. And so that's really what I applied in our practices. We had one on the East Coast, and then in 2007, we sold that practice and we moved across country and opened a second practice in San Diego, California in 2008. And that's where I am now. I started Front Office Rocks probably about 6 or 7 years ago when I again saw there was no real good training for team members. Dentists go to seminars, dentists learn new things, and then they come back to the practice and there's not much training for us. And so I started Front Office Rocks kind of in the hope that I could at least use it to hire and train new team members for me. And it grew, and that's what I do full time now. I'm a speaker and a trainer, and I have an online website that does team training. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And the reason that I'm here is because I'm all about the team. And it takes the entire team to make an amazing practice. You can't have one awesome, office manager or dental assistant and then one not great hygienist or receptionist. Like, it takes all of us to give the patients the experience, the clinical skills, and the dental care and that they deserve. So it's really a team. It's not just one or two of us, it's all of us. So I always start with my training as to, why are we here? Why is it important? Why is it that we need to do this type of thing, like reactivate our patients, right? We should always start with why. And one of the things that I think team members forget or dentists forget is really reflecting on that why. Why did you become a dentist in the first place? Why did you, open your own practice? Why did you become a receptionist? Why are you here? What gets you up every day? Remember when you first got into dentistry? When you first opened your practice and it was, I'm going to rid the world of cavities and gum disease. I'm going to be the best dentist in my community. I'm going to take care of all of our patients like family. And now we get up and we drag our feet and go, oh, I wish I would have opened a donut shop. Well, why is that? It's because we've forgotten our why. We've forgotten the reason that we're here. It's to help our patients keep their teeth for life. And what I've found is that as practices grow, as they get busier, the why gets fuzzier. We get less and less focused on the why and more focused on, what the bottom line is and overhead and all of the business stuff, which is important. But at the end of the day, we need to always remember our why. Simon Sinek says it best, start with your why. And why is not about making money. Your why is about the bigger thing. Why are you here? What is your purpose as being a dentist? What's your purpose for your patients? The how and the what is how we get there and what we do to make sure that we get there. But the why is really the motivation behind you and your team, the inspiration, the thing that keeps your practices growing and keeps your patient in there. And I think it's the biggest missing piece for most dental offices. I think that as we get bigger, we forget it. It gets fuzzier. And so my first suggestion to you is to sit down with your team and to help them remember, why are we here? What is it that we're here to do? It's not just to fill the schedule. It's not just to do dentistry. It's not just to see new patients. It's really about, making sure that our patients keep their teeth for life, making sure that our patients have a healthy mouth for the rest of their lives. And reactivation, which I'm going to get into, is a result of that, right? We need to make sure that our patients are regularly coming to our practices if we're going to help them with that. So start with the missing piece. Start with let's get our team back on the same page about why we're here. Now, I know there's a lot of dental offices out there that are busy, right? We're busy. Everybody's running around. Everybody's doing things. Everybody's, and I'm not saying that they're not busy doing the right things, right? We have hygienists over here seeing patients and assistants over here turning over rooms and front office team members working on the schedule, and everybody's busy. But the issue is, are we all working towards the same goal? Are we all working towards one thing? Because we can have a way more effective team, a way more productive practice if we are all working towards the same goal. And a lot of times our team members, maybe even our dentists, don't even really know what the intention is behind what we do, right? You don't even think, you just go, right? We just go. I mean, when you walk in the morning and you clock in, and next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock and you're like, where did the day go? So really focusing on what the intention is. So when talking about reactivation and reactivation calls, that's a huge one to really make sure any team members or everybody on your team knows what the purpose of reactivation is. When we're doing reactivation calls, when we're sending reactivation emails, what is the real purpose behind it? Is it to remind the patients they haven't been in a while? Yes, that's one of the things it does. Is it to help fill the schedule? Yes. Reactivating patients helps fill the schedule. Is it to make the consultant happy that's in the practice? Sure, right? It's for that. But ultimately, what is the purpose of reactivation calls? What is the purpose of trying to reactivate our patients? And when you go back to the why that I just talked about, right, helping our patients keep their teeth for life, what it really is, and this is what I teach everybody when I'm speaking, it's hashtag butts in the chair. Okay, so I want you to go on social media right now. I want you to go in the Nifty Thrifty group. If you're watching my seminar, I want you to go out there and post Front Office Rocks, Laura Nelson, Nifty Thrifty, hashtag butts in the chair, because that is ultimately what our goal is, what our role is butts in the chair. And what I mean by that is if our patients' butts don't end up in the dental chair, we can't help them. We can't help them keep their teeth for life. We can't help them live longer and live a better life because they didn't show up for their appointment. So when it comes to reactivation, it's not about reminding the patient that they're overdue. It's not about, checking something off the list of something we're supposed to be doing. It's ultimately about getting the patient to arrive and get into the chair, right? Because that's how we're truly going to take care of our patients. The reason that this is so vital when it comes into reactivation is because many times team members don't have that energy behind it. Many times we kind of do reactivation as a rote thing we have to get done. When really, when you put intention behind something, when you really know what your purpose is with this task that you're doing, you're going to be much more successful. So we want to make sure that everybody on our team understands butts in the chair. All right. Now, we need to get out of the dental box. And the issue with the dental box is so many of us, after working in the industry 6 months, a year, 6 years, 60 years, whatever it is, we stop thinking like business people or like receptionists and assistants, and we start thinking like dental box thinking. And what I mean by that is we start to think of things like just about the insurance or just about procedures or just about codes, and we forget that we're dealing with people. So some of the dental box thinking that I hear a lot of in dental offices, and just as a kind of to show you what I'm referring to, is when we talk about things like insurance first. So why is that patient not coming in? Oh, they lost their insurance. Oh, they're going to call us back when they get their insurance back, when they get new insurance. Talking about reactivation, do patients have to have insurance to come to our practices? No, right? They do not have to have dental insurance to come to our practice. So we need to not let insurance dictate what it is our patients, or if our patients are coming to their appointment or not. We need to have opportunities to allow our patients to arrive to their appointments. And maybe that means membership programs. Maybe that means explaining to the patient how insurance is not necessarily the only reason for you to come to the office, right? The next step is, or the next thing is, you don't have to be the dentist for everyone. So I hear a lot of times that dentists, we bend over backwards to try to get patients in. We ask the patients, they show up late for their appointment. They don't want to pay their bill. They're rude to the team up front. And the dentist wants to continue to see them, bring them back, ask them for their family and friends. Like, we don't have to be the dentist for everyone. So when it comes to reactivation, you're going to see when I talk about it that we don't stop trying to reactivate patients unless they're one of the patients that just needs to go somewhere else, right? Because if we're going to try to build a practice with the right why, which is really taking care of our patients and caring about them, we need patients that we care about in the practice. And if we're dealing with all types of patients, it's kind of hard to want to reactivate patients when they are, I like to call them Joe the jerks, right? The last thing is, unless you're family, you're not family. And what I mean by that is, let's talk about reactivation. There are some team members who are like, I just don't have enough time, right? I'm not going to do that. Well, you get paid for a job. And if your job is to get on the phone and try to reactivate patients, guess what? Then you need to do that, right? So there's so many dentists who I think sometimes you feel challenged to get your team members to do what is needed. You need to stop that. Okay, team members, you get paid for a job and you need to do it. So if reactivation is one of them, then we need to make sure we do that. Now, I want to really kind of nail in or talk about insurance, because I do think that we all tend to get a little bit too worried about insurance. I do think that we need to be insurance savvy, which means we need to understand insurance, but we need to recognize if we're being a little bit too insurance driven, which means we're letting insurance dictate what happens for our patients, whether they come in for their appointments or not, whether we try to reach out to them to reactivate them. So let's talk about what are insurance companies in business to do. They're in business to make money, right? Insurance companies, that's their job, is to make money. If you look downtown, all the big buildings downtown are insurance companies or banks. And that's not bad. That's what they're in business to do. But they're not in business to fully take care of our patients. They're not in business to help our patients live longer and live a better life. So we need to recognize that, because the 3 Ds of insurance are delay, decline, and deny. Patients or insurances are going to find any way to not pay for patients' treatment. Patients will cancel their insurances because they're not getting the benefits that they want or need. And then they don't come to us for their cleanings and for their preventative care. So we need to realize that insurances are there to make money. We have to learn to deal with them. But at the end of the day, we need to care about our patients, and getting their butts in the chair is really our goal when it comes to reactivation. So now let's take off our dental hat, right? And let's put on a business hat. What is business? Business Basics 101. And I talk about this in this seminar because, like I said, I didn't know I was going to be a dental office manager, and I didn't go to any dental office manager school. I don't have a degree in dental office management, though I am a FADOM, a fellow of ADOM. But I didn't go to dental office manager school. Your receptionist didn't go. Your schedulers didn't go to school for this. And dentists, you didn't really learn this stuff in dental school, right? You learned dentistry, but I know I was married to a gentleman, a doctor, who went through dental school, and they didn't teach him anything about reactivation and communication with patients and really getting the patients to stay in the practice. So I love working with Dental Intel. If you're not sure or worked with Dental Intel, definitely check it out, because Dental Intel is a metric software that will help us see what's really going on in the practice. And when I started working with Dental Intel, I knew what was happening in practice, but now I can show numbers to it that we get so focused on new patients. I like to call it new patientitis, right? It's all about new patients. That's exciting. We work, we pay money for marketing. We want to get our new patients in, which is Great. The problem is we can't just focus on new patients, and we shouldn't just be focusing on new patients. We should be focusing on the patients that we're potentially losing out the back door. So statistics that I've gotten from Dental Intel is that our net growth for most practices in the United States is a loss. Okay, so net growth is new patients plus recaptured patients, right? The ones that have disappeared and we've gotten them back, plus status change patients, or minus status change patients, meaning patients that have left, and then minus, I don't know, I'm having challenges with that word, minus inactive patients. So we are getting, for example, 20 new patients in the front door every month. That's awesome, right? 20 new patients. But you're losing, your net growth is decreasing because you're actually losing 30 patients out of the back door. And what I mean by that is 30 patients have not been in your practice for 18 months or longer. So we're actually decreasing month after month versus increasing because we're so focused on the front door that we're forgetting about our back door. So what I want to do is I want to kind of point out or go over a small business cycle. And then I want to show how dentistry, we have an opportunity better than any other industry out there because we do have the opportunity to bring our customers back in on a regular basis. So let's talk about the small business cycle. What the small business cycle is that any small business has these 5 elements. You have to market your business. You need to give the customer a great experience or some sort of an experience. You've got to sell them on your products or services. You've got to produce quality products or services so they'll go tell their family and friends. So let's say I have a restaurant in my town. I got to market my restaurant. I need to give the customers a great experience when they're in the restaurant. I need to sell them on the bottle of wine, the dessert, and the appetizers. They need to have quality food. They need to love the food, so they'll go tell their family and friends to come to my restaurant. Well, that's the exact same thing for the dental office, right? We have to market our practices. We have to give our patients amazing experience or give them some sort of experience. Hopefully it's amazing. We have to sell them on our dentistry, so case acceptance. We have to present and sell our patients on the dentistry they need. We need to produce quality dentistry, so they'll go tell their family and friends, okay? This is the small business cycle. Now, we have the opportunity in dentistry to have 2 other avenues to fill our practices. One is hygiene, okay? So the great thing about this is once a patient kind of gets into your cycle, now we have the opportunity, if you look at it from business, to keep that patient continually coming to our practice, into our business. If you talk about a restaurant, there's no guarantee that I'm ever going to go to that restaurant again. There's no commitment on my part as a customer to go to that restaurant again. But we have that in the dental office. So we're continually filling and should be growing our practices because of hygiene. But we also have reactivation. Like I said, those that have disappeared 18 months or longer, we should be actively trying to get those patients back in too, because things happen, which we're going to talk about, but we shouldn't just assume they're never coming back. We have to remember, we are their healthcare providers. We are here to help them keep their teeth for life. I mean, the restaurant, it's to offer them an amazing experience and offer them the opportunity not to have to cook, but they're not helping the patients keep their teeth for life. So our why needs to be big enough to reactivate the patients. And so that's really what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on reactivation. So again, why? I'm going to talk here a minute or two about why customer service is so important. One of the things that I think we miss is that we, again, go to the dental box. We know insurance better than anyone. We know your insurance better than anyone. We offer great clinical production, right? We offer great clinical care, and that's awesome. But what we're missing is the customer service element of it. And I'm going to tie it around how that plays into reactivation in a minute. So let's talk about why customer service is so important. 86% of consumers quit doing business with a company because of bad customer service. So reactivation, customers quit doing business with a service. Patients leave our practice because maybe they didn't receive great customer service. Maybe they saw a temp hygienist that they didn't really click with, or it didn't go well. Maybe they didn't get handled well when it came to rescheduling their appointment. Maybe they got okay service, but since they have to pay out of pocket, they're thinking it's not worth the value. So they need to feel like they're getting good service if they're going to continue doing business with us. 7 in 10 Americans say they'd be willing to spend more with companies that provide excellent customer service. So 7 in 10 Americans are willing to do case acceptance, to do their treatment that we present, to come in for their periodontal maintenance, to come in for their regular recares when they feel like they're getting amazing experience. And so customer service 100% plays into reactivation, because we're losing patients because they're not getting the service that they expect. Because patients don't know if you're a good dentist or not. You don't see patients walking around going, look at this great margin. Like, look at that shade match. That's awesome, right? I'm looking down at myself in the screen. Like, they don't know if you're a good dentist. Maybe they know if you're good bedside manner. Maybe they know if you've got them out of pain. Maybe if you did some cosmetic work. But generally, patients can't tell if you've got the best hygienist in town. They can't tell they got the best cleaning in town. So they judge us on everything else. They judge us on experience. They judge us on how they feel when they're in the practice. They judge us on the team and how the team handled them, right? Because that's all they know. So it is vital that we make sure that solving the issue or making sure that our customer service is awesome helps to make sure that we don't lose patients out of the back door, right? Like, we're trying to solve the problem first. We've lost a lot of patients that we need to reactivate, but let's first decide how can we keep the ones in the practice so we don't have a big reactivation problem, we don't have a big backdoor problem, and then let's get the patients back that we have lost. So why does this matter? Who would you like to be greeted by? I'm all about training team members. I'm all about hiring. I'm going to talk to you about a seminar I have coming up about hiring. I'm all about helping doctors make sure that experience for patients is amazing, because it does matter. Who would you rather be greeted by? If I walk in the front door of a practice, would you rather be greeted by the lady on the top or the lady on the bottom? Now, funny story about this, the lady on the top, when I was looking for these images, she's called Hotel Concierge. That's the title of this picture. The lady on the bottom is titled Dental Office Manager. I'm not kidding. So this is what people already expect from us when it comes to dental office team members. So we need to invest in our team, not just about how to make reactivation calls and how to pull a report out of EagleSoft or Dentrix and how to make sure we're billing insurance correctly. We need to also invest in our team in customer service and communication and reaching out to patients and giving them the experience that they're expecting if we don't want our patients to leave. Because if you go look on the internet, and I'm not an advocate of Yelp, I'm not marketing for them here, but if you go look on the internet, the big difference between people love us on Yelp and people hate us on Yelp or on any review sites, most of the time has to do with the patient or with the team. Most of the time it has to do with how the team handled moving their appointments, an outstanding bill, an insurance claim, they're getting their family members in, whatever the case may be, it has to do with your team. So I want to make sure that you understand, to solve the backdoor problem, we need to make sure that our teams are trained, our team is trained in customer service, right? And making sure that the patient's getting what they expected so they don't leave. Now, what do we consider to be reactivation? Industry standard is anything that is over any patient who's disappeared over 18 months. So if a patient hasn't been in your practice in 18 months or longer, that's considered an inactive patient. Now, a couple thoughts on that. I personally think anybody who hasn't been in over 9 to 12 months, we should be considering inactive. Okay, so I don't want to wait 18 months. That's 3 recares that they potentially missed. I would say anyone past due 2 recares for sure is considered inactive. But I would not mark them inactive in your software. And I'm going to tell you, lesson learned, because I had a team member who was going through doing reactivation calls and deciding on her own who to inactivate and who not. So she would inactivate, unclick active patient in our chart if she felt like there was a good chance they weren't coming back, or she's called them once or twice and they didn't call back, so she inactivated them. That's not what I want. We don't want to inactivate people in the chart. I'm just saying people who haven't been in after a certain period of time. The reason we don't want to inactivate them in their chart in the practice management software is they're not going to come up on your reports anymore. And then you're going to have a wrong numbers, wrong percentages of who needs to be reactivated versus who really truly is inactive. Okay. So, and I'll talk about that. When do we actually inactivate patients in a minute? Now, why do we want to invest financially in reactivation? Because reactivating a patient costs a lot less than bringing in a new patient, okay? They are 5 times less expensive to bring in your existing customers, your existing patients, than it is trying to market for a new patient. So if you're looking at dollars and cents value, my suggestion is don't focus so much on new patient marketing. Don't focus so much on trying to get the new patients in. If that's working, great, the ones that you're getting, but put some effort and attention and training into reactivating the patients that you have. And it doesn't cost as much to get those patients back in. They've been in your practice. They loved you at one point. They've been there before. They know who you are. You don't have to make them aware of you. You just need to get them back in, right? And it costs a lot less than it does to try to get a new patient in. Another reason is case acceptance, right? Existing patients are 3 times more likely to buy than ones that are new to your practice. So a new patient's coming in, they don't know you at all. They're not sure, you don't know them. They're not sure what they need. They don't know how you're going to work with their insurance. They don't know if they're going to trust you. So they're less likely for case acceptance to accept the treatment than a patient who's already familiar with you, who already knows. So it's a great investment to bring those patients back in, because you're going to have a higher, not only getting the patients back in to take care of them and to get their butts in the chair, but now also case acceptance about getting the patient to get the treatment done that they need. Okay. So hopefully I've convinced you why this is important, right? Why do we want to focus on reactivation? Now let's talk about, why do patients fall off the bandwagon? How do they become inactive? Well, I've already talked about one, and that is bad customer service. A patient is going to leave if they don't feel like they're getting the value for the treatment or the value for the money that they're spending. All right. So we've talked about the importance of customer service for your patients. The next thing is that your systems are broken. That we're not getting our patients to reappoint, that patients are canceling and we're not following up with them, that we're not prioritizing reactivation calls or communication. So we need to fix 2 things in order to close our backdoor problem, and that's customer service and working on our systems, okay? So let's talk about the inactive patient. Where do they go? Well, most of the time, a lot of times, they don't go anywhere. Right? We feel as dental professionals that if a patient doesn't come in for 12 months or 18 months, that the patient must be going somewhere else, that they must have found another dentist. But you know what? Most of the time, the patients aren't going anywhere. They're just not going to the dentist. And why is that? Because first of all, we're not their favorite place to go, right? Like, I know we've talked about that. What do we do for a living? We make sure our patients keep their teeth for life. We do everything we can to make our patients healthy, right? But in our patients' minds, what do? We put drills and needles in their mouths, and they're going to pay thousands of dollars for something nobody's ever going to see. So we are not as exciting to go to as the new restaurant down the street. So it's easy for a patient to get busy, to find other ways, other things to do, other places to spend money, and not show up. So there's that. Then there's also just life happens. Like, think about the last time you went and got an oil change in your car and you're thinking, I just got an oil change, or got my nails done, or went to get my physical exam. Whatever it is that you do that's maybe just like kind of to do, Think about how quickly it seems to happen. Well, that's the same for us. Patients just get busy, right? I had a patient call in once and she was, it was like July, and she's like, your team keeps calling me and they're saying I'm overdue, but I was just there 6 months ago. And I look and I pull it up in the chart, and she was there in January a year and a half ago. So she thought it was this past January, but it was really 18 months ago, right? Patients just get busy and they lose track of how long it's been, okay? So how did they become inactive? Well, first of all, not good handoffs from the clinical team to the administrative team. Handoffs are key. Your team should be trained in how to do good handoffs. And a handoff isn't, here's Mrs. Jones, we're done for today, go ahead and get her scheduled for her next appointment. A handoff is a verbal handoff where the patient knows the next appointment needs to be scheduled. The doctor's already told the patient the importance of the next appointment or the importance of their maintenance or recare, and then we make sure that the patient gets scheduled. We did not do a good job of appointing them before they left. Getting a patient to schedule an appointment 6 months from now is harder than getting a patient to schedule an appointment in the next week. And what I mean by that is, if a patient has a dental need and they're coming into the doctor's schedule, they're more likely to go ahead and schedule that appointment, even though they don't want to have it done and it costs more money, than they are to schedule an appointment 6 months from now for their cleaning. Because patients will say most of the time to your team members, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to be doing 6 months from now. Just go ahead and put me on a list and give me a call, or I'll call you. And if your team member is not trained in how to handle that, they're going to say, okay, we'll give you a call, or you give us a call in 6 months, and the patient's going to leave without an appointment. And that happens, I'm telling you, every single day. I was actually in an office, and the manager was filling out at the end of the day their reappointment rate. So the appointments that they scheduled, that they were supposed to schedule for the next appointment for patients, and they only scheduled 65% of their patients that day. And I said to the office manager, well, what are you tracking? And she says, we track our reappointment rate. And I said, okay, great. What's your goal? And she said, 95%. So 95% of the patients who leave today should have an appointment in the future. And I said, your goal was, and you only did 65. And she said, yeah. And I said, well, what do you do with this number? And she said, we write it on this form and we send it to our consultant. And I said, okay, and then what do you do with it? And she says, and then we put it in a book and we wait for our consultant to come in. And then we talk about it when the consultant comes in once a year. What's the point of tracking it if you're not doing something about it? We need to make sure that we're tracking and we're training our team on how to handle that when a patient doesn't want to appoint. Because there are going to be patients who are tougher to appoint, and your team needs to know how to handle that, and they need to have the verbal skills to be able to handle that. Sometimes we have patients who've called and they've canceled their appointment, and we didn't work hard to get them into the schedule or schedule a future appointment, and then they fall off, and then we don't try to get them back into the schedule. Or they no-showed and they failed, and we assume because they didn't show or they didn't, they failed their appointment that they must have gone somewhere else, or we don't put them on a list and we don't follow up, and then they get lost. So there's multiple reasons why patients fall off the schedule, or a real reason, right? They moved, or they passed away, or whatever the case may be, the real reason. But most of the time it's just because they didn't either get good service, or it's because we didn't have good systems in place. Now, back to the why again. Why do we need to reactivate these patients? Because nobody else is looking out for this part of our patients' bodies, okay? Their mechanics not, their doctors not, their chiropractors not. This is our area of expertise. And it's our job to make sure our team members need to understand the importance of getting our patients to recognize that we are the experts when it comes to this. And it's our job to get the patients in to really take care of them. And it's funny how now patients are starting to realize that their mouth and their body are connected. And we're getting a little bit of like if I take care of my teeth, that's better for my heart, or that's better for my body. But a lot of patients don't know that. A lot of team members don't know that. So it's our job to make sure that we're looking out for this part of our patient's body, for their health, okay? If we don't actively try to reactivate patients, if we don't actively try to get our patients in, well, when do they want to come in? We don't hear from them sometimes until what? Till they have pain, right? They don't think, I need to get to the dentist. Or maybe they do think it, but they don't actually make the call, okay? So then they try to come in because they're in pain. The issue is when a patient disappears for a significant amount of time and then they're in pain, if we haven't been continually trying to get the patient to come back in, if we haven't been continually trying to welcome the patient back to the practice, maybe it's 3 years from now, maybe it's 5 years from now, and the patient's in pain, there's a chance they're not even going to call you now. They're going to call somebody new because they're embarrassed, because we haven't reached out to them to let them know they're always welcome back, because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, and they're going to call somebody else. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get those patients in before they're in pain. And if they are in pain and haven't come in, to get them back when they decide it's time to get in and get that tooth taken care of. All right. So when do we fit the patient and when do we fit reactivation into the schedule? Okay. So doctors, if you're watching this, please understand that reactivation and team members, if you don't know this already, typically falls to the bottom of the list of things we have to get done. We have in the front, we have confirmation calls to do. We have to enter new patient paperwork. We have to answer the phones. We have to verify benefits. We have to fill the holes in the schedule. We have to get the claims going. We have to present treatment. We have to call in statements. We have to, it's 5 o'clock and we haven't made reactivation calls. And then it's Tuesday, and then it's Wednesday, and then it's Friday, and we haven't made reactivation calls. The one thing we do not have enough of in the dental office is time. So if we don't prioritize reactivation, follow-ups, and calls, if we don't use technology to help us with this, it just doesn't happen. And I've been guilty of it. I know when I started looking at our software with our metrics and realized that we had a backdoor problem, I realized that we just weren't prioritizing it. We didn't have enough time. So we've got to make sure that we're putting it in the schedule and that we're training our team to do it and that everybody on the team can help, because it is something that we need to put as a priority. We need to get our patients back in. All right. So when it comes to reactivation calls, I say quantity over quality. And what I mean, it's not necessarily about quantity. I think I wrote that wrong. It's quantity over quality with a grain of salt. I need to fix that. So there's your trick right there. Were you paying attention? When I say that, what I mean is we have to reach out to these patients on a regular basis, once a month minimally is my goal, is what I teach. So I've got to make a lot of calls fast because we probably have a long list of patients that need to be reactivated. So I don't want to spend 15 minutes for every patient doing research, looking at past treatment plans, checking their insurance claims, checking if they had family members, checking how many times they've been in, how many times we called them, what notes did we have about the calls. I want to get on the phone. I want to get the patient on the phone. So I want to set up a system so that I can quickly make as many calls as possible. Because really what it is, it's about trying to reach out to that patient and get them talking to you. It's not about how much you know about the history. It's about getting the patient on the phone or getting connected to them to get them back in, okay? So your team members need to understand the importance about it. So if you have team members that are going to be doing reactivation calls, and I suggest everybody on the team be trained at this, have them watch this video, right? Have them be trained in understanding what the intention is. And then we have to get it mixed into the day, because if we save it for the end of the day, it's kind of like saving your workout for the end of the day. It's kind of like saving your peas on your plate till the end of the day. You just kind of dread it and then find many excuses for it not to happen. So my suggestion is that we mix it into the day, a couple calls every hour, or do the calls first thing in the morning, or somehow prioritize it so it happens and it doesn't wait till the end of the day, because the day flies by fast. All right. And then we want to be tracking the calls. We want to make sure that the calls are happening, that we're reaching out to the patients, whatever your system is in your practice. Okay. So the purpose of the reactivation call, I love technology. I'm going to talk about technology in a minute. I think you should use technology also, but I also think there's a value in a phone call. And 9 times out of 10, we're just going to leave a voicemail message. 9 times out of 10, you're actually not going to talk to somebody, because if they're like me, I don't answer my phone, especially if somebody calls that I'm not super keen to talk to. I'm going to let it go to voicemail. But it's important that we still call them, because they need to hear a voice. They need to hear care in your voice. They need to know that they matter, right? So I'm gonna call and I'm gonna say, let them know they're always welcome back. Do you know it's been 18 months since you've been in? I understand life happens, but we just want to let you know that your dental health is important to us. And we want to get you in here as soon as life settles down for you. We want to make sure that no matter how long it's been, you're always welcome back into the practice. And we need to get you scheduled, right? So I'm going to follow up with you again. If I don't hear from you, I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to send you a text, and then give us a call back and let's get you scheduled. Even if it's down the road, let's go ahead and get you in the books, okay? I want to say something, and now you can see here, I don't have a script for you. I'm not about scripts. I don't think scripts work. I think scripts sound fake and unreal, but your team members need to be comfortable with the words that they say. They need to be confident. So they need to go through this and kind of write out or think out what they say so it comes from the heart. It's going to go way further than a script when your team member actually says, hey, I miss you, if that's the way they talk, or what have you been up to, or whatever, because you are important to us, right? You are a patient that the doctor and we care about, and we want to get you back in the practice. Like, that's going to go a lot further than saying the right words on a script, okay? So, like I said, our goals, or what I suggest, is we call the patient at least once a month, and we reach out to the patient using technology at least once a month. So one call, one technology reach out. We want to leave great messages. So when we leave a message, it's not, this is Laura calling from the doctor's office. You're overdue for your appointment, so give us a call. We're really worried about you, right? It is, the doctor asked me to give you a call, and your health is super important to us. We understand life happens. Give us a call, send us a message back. Let's get you scheduled, right? Leave your name clearly. Be caring. Be empathetic, but be friendly, but be urgent, right? Their healthcare is important. We're the only ones who look out for this part of their bodies, okay? Then also follow up with a text mail or set up an email system in the software that you use. If you use like Solution Reach, send an email to them once a month that reminds them that they're overdue and that they're always welcome back into the practice. And the thing about technology that works really great is when you leave a voicemail, they hear it maybe on their drive home for the day, and then they get to their emails and they see an email from you. They're probably more likely to respond to the email to get scheduled, or even using something where you can schedule an appointment and they can schedule it from home. We want to have technology help them and make them have a higher chance of scheduling with us, okay? So again, I think that they should, with your calls, it should be start with the doctor's name. The doctor asked us to call you. It's been a while since you've been in. Let's get you scheduled. We're concerned about your health. And if you can't book the appointment now, when can I give you a call back? Or I'm going to call you back in a month from now, and we need to get you scheduled. And then I need to put in good notes. I need to have notes that say what's going on in the patient's lives, or when we said that we were going to call them back, or what the agreement was with the patient, so that when I do call them back, I can refer to those notes and be able to continue the conversation with that patient, okay? When it comes to technology, I suggest you do things to set yourself apart. Don't just send an email with the sad puppy dog that says, we miss you. Because that's what they're getting from their chiropractor and their, whatever else, their gym or wherever else they're supposed to be. I suggest you do things to set yourself apart, to remind the patients that why they come to you. One of the things that I did is we did, birthday emails, and we did reactivation videos, and we did follow-up videos from the doctors that actually put a name and a voice and a face together in a video. So with our hygienists, what we did in the bottom right there, we had our 3 hygienists, and we filmed a video that was, hey, it's been over 6 months since you've been in the practice, and we really miss you, and your health is important to us. And it was from the hygienists, because most of the time our patients have a connection with the hygienist, right? And for them to say that in a video, we had a higher chance of a patient going, you know what? I forgot that I really do need to get back in, and I need to schedule that appointment, okay? So find ways to stand out. When do you stop making reactivation calls? My answer is never. Never stop making reactivation calls. And I actually have a story of that where The doctor in our practice wanted to stop at like 2 years. Once we've called for 2 years and they haven't come in, let's go ahead and stop making reactivation calls. And I said, no, I think we should continue to do them until the patient asks us to stop. And within the next month or so, we actually had a new patient that came in, and the new patient, we were meeting with a new patient. We asked, how did you hear about us? And he said, Joe from my office recommended coming to you. He says, you're his dentist and you guys are great. Well, I looked up Joe that he works with, and Joe hasn't been in our practice for 5 years. But Joe still refers to our practice as his dentist. So again, they're not going other places. If they are, they'll tell you when you call them, but more than likely they're just not going anywhere else. So continually reach out because you care about this part of their body, right? And be their healthcare provider and really make sure that they know how important it is to get back in. The only time I would say you stop is if they ask you to stop. Like I said, I'm going somewhere else, right? Or I've moved, I live out of state. Or if a family member, unfortunately, you find out that they've passed away, of course. Or like we started at the beginning, if you've got a Joe the jerk, okay? If you've got a Joe the jerk that just does not need to be in your practice, then just go ahead and inactivate them and move on, and do not continue to bring those patients in. All right, so then we need to enjoy the results. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we don't recognize is wins in our practice. When we're trying to reactivate, we're playing a game where we should be having fun. Our team members should be motivated by it. Doctors, you should be included on it. So recognize it when you actually reactivate a patient. Maybe do a reactivation program in your practice and say, all right, for every patient we reactivate, we get a point. And then once we get to 30 points, the doctor will buy everybody pizza. Or just pat yourself in the back when you've actually get a patient who hasn't been in for 18 months, 2 years, and they're back because you've helped them with their health care. So just make sure that you're recognizing the wins. You're recognizing it when you do something great, because there's enough beating us up throughout the day that we need to recognize that the results of the good things that we're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's about our patients' healthcare. So, final thoughts. You have to train the team. You have to make sure that you're investing in your team. If you're watching this and your doctor signed you up for this, welcome and congratulations, and thank your doctor for this. Doctors, if you're watching this, this can't just live with you. You need to continually train your team so they can get better at these things also, okay? And I have a lot of team members or a lot of dentists who say, but Laura, what if I invest in my team and I pay them to do training and then they leave? And I love this quote from Henry Ford. And the only thing worse than training a team member and having them leave is not training a team member and having them stay. So make sure you're investing in your team. We need to train our new hires. We need to continually train our team because they need continual training, just like you need CE. We need to do cross training. We need to do team training. We need to all be going towards the same goal that I talked about in the beginning, because patients remember the experience when they're in the practice, okay? So if you need any more information, there's a Nifty Thrifty deal. If you're part of Nifty Thrifty, you can definitely go there and get the special, but it's under $8 a day with Front Office Rocks. We have search function. We have customer service reps that are available to you. We have hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos, front office, back office, customer service, reactivation, all there to help your team members grow in the areas that they didn't receive the training in order to be effective. And then I mentioned earlier that I have a hiring event coming up, and it's actually, by the time you watch this, it's past, but you can pay for the replay. I have a hiring event. We have a new to dental, because I believe that you don't have to hire dental to have a great employee. We can teach them the dental. I didn't know dental and I had to learn, but I have other things like scheduling and case acceptance and a reactivation training, 4 hour, it's actually 6 hours for CE, 4 hours of CE coming up in December. So to learn more about the events that I'm hosting, they're all virtual like this, but they're live virtual, so you can be involved, ask questions, interactive, and then there's 4 weeks of coaching on that subject afterwards. Please come to Front Office Rocks or mention something in this group and we'll get you connected, and there's a discount for 10% off of each one of these events. So these are all one-day live events on 8 different subjects. that have 4 weeks of coaching after. So like I said, I'm all about helping you and your team grow and do better. And that's what we have at Front Office Rocks. So definitely check us out. I have a book, but I have a book. If you're interested, you can go to Amazon. It's called Step Away from the Drill. It really kind of takes all of this idea that your team matters and what's going on in your practice matters, and gets you in the right mindset to be able to communicate and work with your team on this, because patients don't judge you on your dentistry. They just know how they feel when they're in the office. So the best investment you can make is on the team. So hashtag butts in the chair. And then the most important piece of technology in your dental office is the phone. Get on the phones, get your team members on the phones, answer your phones, right? Respect the phone. And we have a whole continual training program on that also. So thank you so much. I'm sorry we're not in person and I can't give you hugs at the end of this, but I'm so glad that you joined us. I'm so glad you joined me for this last hour. I'm available. My team's available to any one of you if you have questions about anything I've gone over. But get out there, get your patients back, because it's the right thing to do. Worry about your back door. Let's train your team to close the back door, and your practice will grow and you'll see the results. So thank you all very much. I hope you have an amazing day.
Meet Dave. Dave needs a great dentist. You are a great dentist. This could be a match made in heaven. How does Dave find you, though? If you're smart, you've got a snazzy website and online appointment booking to make it easy for Dave. But these tools can start getting expensive. Plus, you've got to make sure Dave keeps his appointment, fills out new patient forms, pays his bill, and keeps coming back. And if you want Dave to share his awesome experience with his friends and family, that can cost even more. Legwork can help. Legwork is an all-in-one patient engagement platform that combines patient communications, marketing, and front office efficiency tools, all for one low price. With everything you need in one integrated package, you save time and money. Patients will engage with you on your custom website and easily book their appointment online. You'll keep them engaged for the long haul with automated appointment reminders, teledentistry, and unscheduled treatment booking. And with their own patient portal, they can see appointments, pay bills, update forms, and self-service. And it all syncs seamlessly with your practice management system, so you can make sure Dave and all your future customers are happy as you grow your practice. See Legwork in action. Contact us today for this limited time offer.
I'm proud to present our next speaker, CEO of Legwork, Korey Korfiatis. Korey Korfiatis is a serial entrepreneur who built his first business at just the age of 26. He's an accomplished speaker and writer on dental marketing and brand strategy, and holds a Markham and Davey Branding Award for his work. He is also the co-founder and co-CEO of Legwork, a patient engagement software platform that engages 20 million patients across the United States and Canada. Korey will be presenting Overcoming the Digital Marketing Power Shift, learn why the patient currently has all the power and how to get it back.
Hi there, and thank you for joining me. Today's webinar is titled Overcoming the Digital Marketing Power Shift. Today we're going to learn why the patient currently has all the power online, but more importantly, how you can get it back within your control. But first, before we get started, I want to just introduce myself. My name is Korey Korfiatis. I am the co-CEO and co-founder here at Legwork. I've been working in the dental industry for over 20 years, helping to market, brand, and consult for dentists across the United States and into Canada. During that time, my team, as well as the information that I learned over those years, is how we created Legwork. So just a bit about Legwork real quick. Legwork is dentistry's first all-in-one patient engagement solution, and it offers a seamless patient engagement software and website ecosystem that is designed to solve dentistry's most common challenges as it relates to patient engagement and marketing.
As a result of our development, legwork lowers your costs, saves your team valuable time, and improves their outcomes. So now let's go and get started on learning how to overcome the digital marketing power shift. So in order to move into the subject matter today, I want to give a quick overview of the discussion. The title is a bit elusive, so I want to describe what we're going to be talking about and how to help a little bit more effectively. So first, we need to understand that today's consumers are more informed than ever before. They have seemingly limitless options to dental health information and unprecedented access to how practices treat their patients. And that's really the big component for today, is that access to how practices treat their patients. They look to their peers, social proof, things online in order to make decisions about dentistry. And so these changes have translated to a sharp shift in power from practice to patient and resulted in dramatically higher consumer expectations. So simply put, the patient has control because they control the narrative of your business more so than you can control it. They talk about you online, they review you online, and so forth. They have more control potentially than you have in order to drive the brand perception that you're looking for your business. So we're going to help you today to change that paradigm as best we can. Also, we have to understand that patients are less trusting and less flexible than they've ever been. And COVID has not helped this. So we'll talk about the consumer mindset and how they've got this power and what COVID has elevated in terms of their thinking and what they're concerned with. So let's start. In order to make this shift, we have to understand the consumer. How and why does the patient currently have the power, and what does this mean for you? The consumer, I broke this down into 4 points. Sorry, I've got a typo there. It's basically 1 through 4. And so we'll start with number 1. They have more control over the brand narrative than you do. I mentioned this in the introduction here. What that simply means is they control how your brand is perceived in the marketplace more effectively than you can put messaging out there to control how your brand is perceived. The patient talks about you more than your ads or messaging is seen on a regular basis. So we need to help control that brand narrative through our patient base. 2 is they put more stock in what peers have to say about your business than any claims you can make about your business. There's a common statistic out there that says less than 40% of the population actually believes in the advertising they consume today. In other words, the messages, the promises that are said or stated through advertising aren't really resonating anymore because consumers are more savvy. They understand that marketing is marketing. And so they look to their peers and what the peers say about your brand more than they believe in the advertising you can put out. 3rd is dentistry is seen as a parity service. You've probably heard this from many other speakers, and you probably are well aware that because you're seen as a parity service, consumers have a hard time differentiating your practice and how you are different from the practicing dentist down the street. So branding and marketing have a big play a big role in this narrative. They in order to define yourself, you still have to market and brand and build brand, but it's how you do it that we're going to talk about today to help improve that narrative through the existing patient. And then number 4, should say number 4 there, COVID has only intensified this control. And so what we want to do is look at how COVID has changed the control with what I'm calling newer pain points or newer methodologies that or behaviors that patients are that are resonating with patients today based on COVID. So number 1, they're distracted. They're getting back to their lives slowly as restrictions are being lessened slightly. And as they get back to life, and that we've just gone through summer and now we're going into fall and we're back to school, at least virtually. I know, depending on the state, I know in our state, we're not going back to school physically right now. Many of the schools aren't. And so all of this has caused a distracted consumer. as they get back to life outside of their home or even still in their home. Second is they're skeptical. They're fearful of unnecessary exposure. No one wants COVID. And certainly depending on where you fit within the health spectrum, you may be even more fearful. They're PPE educated. Their increased awareness of what PPE is and what their expectations should be has been increased through media. Now, a quick story on this, because I think it really tells the story of exactly what I mean by this. I've been hovering around the dental industry and marketing and consulting for dentists for over 20 years, and I hate to admit it, but I didn't even know what the acronym PPE meant. I didn't know what it stood for. I didn't know what it represented, and now, of course, I'm inundated with what PPE means. So me, as someone who's been very close to the dental market, still didn't know what PPE is, and now everyone can speak to what it means. Now, that doesn't mean they understand it fully like you do as a dentist or a practitioner, but certainly we understand the gist of what PPE is and what we should expect as patients. Next is that they are impatient. We had no access to our dentistry for quite some time and only limited at best. And now that we have access, we want it now. So what we're seeing in the dental industry is that everyone is extremely busy and their practices are full. But we also know that as we move into fall and winter, that's not going to be as likely, because patients that want it now are now in and being seen. But that shift is going to go back to the standard of needing to fill seats. You know, that honeymoon period, if you will, is going to go away. And so as patients want it now, even though they might not be in your chair, when they do want it, they want access to you. And there's lots of data that points out that being more accessible as a dental practice today is going to be very valuable in going forward. So we'll talk about that as well. And then lastly, they're cash strapped. Many of the consumers have been out of work for the obvious reasons, even just like you. So as they move back into going back to work and they need to consider dentistry, they are strapped with cash in some respects. So this is the kind of lay of the land as the consumer is looking at the market and thinking about dentistry. And this will help us to gain back this power shift, is by understanding the patient persona. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the reality of the market here before we get into solving the problems. And so forgive me for being a little bit sort of beating up the situation, but it's really important that we have a good outlook on what is going on in order to fix it. So the next component that's creating a challenge is that the typical dental practice isn't equipped to help guide the narrative. In other words, they are fraught with operational challenges. And this isn't through any fault of yours. Practice owners and operators often struggle with operational challenges, again, through no fault of their own. And the reason mainly is because if you're not working on patients, if you're not working in the operatories, you're not making any money. But yet any traditional business has the benefit of working on their business more so than in it. In other words, you're busy working in your business, working on patients in order to make money. Meanwhile, businesses like ours, like mine, I get to work on my business more so than delivering the specific service. Therefore, I have more control over the operational challenges that we face. And yet, this is one of the biggest problems with controlling the shift of the consumer, or the power shift, because what ends up happening is this creates what we call a disparate brand funnel. And just to be clear, branding is all the communications that make up your business, not just a logo. So we're talking about how you're marketed in the industry, how you're marketed in the community when I talk about branding. So because of this disparate brand funnel, this often results in, how this occurs is it results in piecing together multiple vendors to solve challenges as they arise. And those systems rarely match up. So example would be, you're putting out spot fires as they occur, and the way you put out spot fires is going to find a solution for that specific fire to put it out. But with regards to communications, all of the communications that make up your brand is what makes up consistency, and that consistency is what's needed in order to foster growth. So if you look at the slide and you think about how the consumer goes from stranger to visitor to patient to advocate, they are going through their own psychological processes. At the stranger level, they're building awareness for themselves about you. At the visitor level, you're trying to build rapport with them. At the patient level, you're trying to gain their trust so they accept treatment. And at the advocate level, you're trying to build loyalty so they go tell others. And if these different phases of communication within that brand funnel are not aligned, you can imagine how difficult it is for the patient to tell your story effectively, and therefore you get a disparate brand funnel because one group of vendors is handling the awareness phase, another group is handling the visitor phase, and so on. And before you know it, as you look back on your brand funnel and all of the channels that you're using to market that funnel, you realize that none of them are talking to each other. They're saying inconsistent things, and this creates confusion. This also adds to why dentistry is traditionally seen as a parity service, because there's no way to differentiate effectively without a consistent brand funnel. So the best thing you can do, not only for yourself but for the entire dental industry, is align your communications so that you're helping consumers understand the value of dentistry, and specifically the value of doing dentistry in your practice. So we've got to eliminate that brand confusion. And the first way to do that is to align the digital consumer to patient funnel. So this is that journey that patient goes through, and making sure that instead of it being disparate, it's all nicely aligned so that when the consumer moves through that funnel from stranger to web visitor to lead to opportunity to appointment, they ultimately become a strong brand advocate, meaning they're going to tell your story for you. They're going to help change the consumer power shift because you're controlling the narrative that they talk about, as opposed to having this disparate system where they don't know what to even talk about, and therefore we don't have the brand alignment that we need. So the top of the funnel is essentially what represents all of the communications that make up the branding, whether you're using advertising, in-office marketing, community marketing, doesn't really matter. The point is all of those components need to align. And then they need to move the consumer through what they typically go through when it comes to behavior in a consistent way in order to build that advocacy. So if we can agree that the consumer controls the narrative currently, then we must do all we can to build brand advocates in your practice that will tell your story, the correct story, that is, not the wrong story, but the correct story, which is where the consistency is so important. And the only way we can do this is to brand consistently and frequently as much as possible to the existing patient base and have it be in alignment with any marketing you're doing. So the experiences, both in office and out of office, all align so the story is told correctly. So the stranger phase is the phase, I want to get specific to what that is. It's creating interest through, most often than not, digital marketing. At least we're going to focus on digital marketing today. There are other channels, other marketing channels, of course. There's traditional marketing in the community, newspaper, radio, television, direct mail, things like that. Those all have their place, but we're going to talk about digital marketing channels specifically, because ultimately all marketing channels lead to the web nowadays. Doesn't matter, ultimately it almost always leads to the web, if nothing else, just to find your phone number. So the stranger phase is creating interest through, in this case, digital marketing. The web visitor phase is more than just creating a website that's a glorified brochure. It's making sure that you build desire with engagement tools. So it's simply put, when they get to your website, they have to have ways to engage with you, not just stop by, read something, and leave. Because consumers aren't always ready to make decisions right when they stop by. So we need a second layer of opportunity. We need methods for them to engage with you. Third is being more accessible. Remember, the consumer is impatient right now, and accessibility is going to be extremely important going forward into 2021 and beyond. Lots of data on this, that the consumer prefers to have more accessibility to their healthcare provider. These are things like how you answer the phone, when you answer the phone, and how you handle that, also being accessible through online booking and things of that nature. And then opportunity. So when we get a lead, in other words, when we get someone interested in dentistry, there's also an opportunity, not necessarily an appointment occurrence. So in other words, the patient might not yet be ready to commit, and so the team, your team, needs to be trained to overcome those objections, those things that would cause them from choosing someone else, and help them identify how to do that. And so things that you need in place are to take advantage of opportunity, is to make sure that the team is certainly available and aware and knows how to move that consumer down the funnel to an actual appointment. And then once they make an appointment, of course, we need to make sure they have a memorable first impression, not just good dental care, which of course is critical, but also a good experience, so that they are willing to share it with their own community, with their friends, family, and so on. And that's what develops an advocate, someone who has the wherewithal to actually take time out of their day to explain exactly how it was different, why it was different, and why their friends and family should choose you. So we need to have a process for patients to share their experiences. So let's now go into how we build this funnel. The funnel is the process, again, of moving that consumer through these stages, and it requires technology in order to do this. Now, full disclaimer, because I'm the co-CEO at Legwork, I talk about Legwork in this particular sense of a funnel, but there are other tools out there. So if I reference Legwork, it's not a sales pitch so much as this is how we built philosophically the process of moving a consumer through the funnel. And it starts with what we call PRM software technology. PRM stands for Patient Relationship Management. What this does is it solves a lot of the challenges that you would otherwise face with digital marketing. So first we have to understand that digital marketing requires a complex process of managing contact data, and then having the ability to trigger automated responses, and then be able to track those responses and monitor those results. That requires software. You can't just send out an email blast and expect anything from it, or how to measure it, or how to use it more effectively, if you don't have a way to then look at what the impacts of that email blast offered you, positively and negatively. So in common business markets outside of healthcare that have direct sales teams, they accomplish this through the use of what we call a CRM, or customer relationship management software. Legwork is just specifically a dental specific CRM, therefore we call it a patient relationship management software. And again, the differences are negligible, with one impact, which is the PRM. In our case, the benefit of dentistry is we're able to connect to the practice management system, which gives you more connectivity and more seamless information as it relates to leads and patients, whereas a traditional CRM typically is managed in a totally separate way. And so dentistry has an advantage in that PRMs in dentistry actually connect to the practice management systems. So what does a PRM need to do? It needs to give you contact management capability. And what that means is if you're collecting information from a patient or a lead on the web, we need that information to go somewhere so that we can work with that data. So let's say you put a lead capture form out on a website, something that says, hey, learn more by downloading this white paper, or learn more by watching this video. I'll send you this video if you give me your name and email. That name and email needs to go into the automation funnel, and this is where the PRM picks up that information because it has a lead capture form and manages that contact information to then let you send information out to that individual and start building rapport and trust and move them down the funnel through automation, and also in combination with talking to your team so that they're in the process as well, so they can start building rapport with that consumer as well. Of course, the PRM might have additional tools like appointment setting, review generation, and those types of things. And ultimately, that's the goal, is to have this all-in-one seamless interface so that you are able to control that narrative more effectively. So now that we have this PRM system, we need to understand that just because you have the automation to start making this work, we also need to understand that the message is important. In other words, what you send through this automation system is arguably more important than the automation itself. Why? Well, simply put, if you're not developing a narrative that is consistent, frequent, and more often than not memorable and creates inspiration, then basically we have nothing. So the way we say it in marketing is, if your branding isn't well defined, if your message and how you want your consumer to understand what you have to offer isn't well defined, then your marketing doesn't stand a chance. So this is where message becomes very important. So I've put a slide together to help you understand the different pain points and how you would position your brand accordingly. Remember, the current consumer is a skeptic, they're distracted, they're more educated, they're impatient, they're cash strapped, and they might also be without insurance. These are the common pain points of the consumer. On the right-hand side of the slide, I've described how you might position or build content around solving those pain points that are specific to what the patient wants to is hoping to overcome. So the skeptic, remember, they might be fearful of being exposed at the dentist office, being exposed to COVID. So explaining to the skeptic why and how you have a COVID pre-screen and text messaging like a curbside appointment process upon arrival is for their safety. The distracted patient will benefit from no-touch pre- and post-appointment communications and a workflow that helps them make appointments, confirm appointments, and arrive at the appointment on time, all through no-touch communications, keeps them aware and showing up to their appointments. PPE educated, using your website and a text link or email link, driving the user over to a landing page on your website to deeply or comprehensively explain what you're doing for PPE and why it's a benefit to the patient. In patients, being more accessible, and that's a key right now, is being more accessible. So having an online appointment booking process and some kind of automated follow-up, also considering how you're handling phone calls after hours, off times. Remember, the patient still sees the dental industry as being not very accessible and always busy. So, their perception is that you're closed on Fridays, you take 4 weeks off, you must be extremely busy and never seeking out new patients. We all know that's not true. We know Fridays are heavy administrative days. You're working nights and weekends, but the perception is you're unavailable, therefore you must be super busy. We need to change that mind shift in dentistry. We need to be more accessible to be successful, because in the rest of the world, being accessible is a must. I can make an Uber appointment right now on my phone without talking to a single soul. I can make an appointment for a hotel right now, a flight, anything. I can do it all from my phone. So getting that accessibility to you is going to be critical. Cash strapped, maybe consider membership plans, alternative payment plans, monthly payments, etc. Being, again, more amenable to the changes in the economy and in the industry or in the marketplace is going to be very important. So these are some of the ways that you can adjust your brand positioning to to help overcome the objections from the patient's perspective. Now, I could go on and on and on about this, but in order to complete the funnel process and the building of it, we'll move on. But this is a big one, is the message that you send through the funnel. The next piece is now that you've got a message, you've got your automation in place, you now need to consider where the ducks are flying, if you will. And whether patients are being referred to you or whether they are looking for their next dentist, they're more often than not going to start on the web. Again, whether they were referred or not, they might just be coming to find your phone number, if nothing else. So you need to understand the web, and specifically Google. Now, again, there's way more than Google on the web that can help you grow your business, but because of this specific process of the funnel, we're going to talk about Google more heavily today. So first of all, you need to understand that Google My Business, which is where the area where the maps are, just to the lower section of this slide, and it's where your reviews show up. This is the new quote-unquote yellow pages for the digital age. Back in the day, as some of you may or may not remember, Yellow Pages was the place we found our vendor or our service provider in order to get their phone number, if nothing else. Not a lot of branding was done in the Yellow Pages, but it was a directory. It was a resource to go find information. Well, Google has obviously replaced that, but Google's also been very powerful when in aligning their brand promise, and their brand promise is essentially to provide search results to consumers as closely aligned to what they're looking for as possible, while still selling advertising. Because again, remember, Google is driven by advertising. That is how they make their money. And so they've gotten very sophisticated at how they place advertising in front of consumers without it essentially eroding their search results. So putting the right advertising in front of the right searcher so that they will click on an ad versus what we call an organic or unpaid list result. So this is where you need to understand the power of Google and why you need to consider advertising over what you might have used to thought of as search engine optimization, which is a whole nother topic. So first, we need to understand the data. Patients search for the keyword dentist on Google an estimated 7 million times per month. So that keyword dentist, or it could be dentistry or dental, but ultimately that keyword dentist is searched for 7 million times per month. Now, the qualifier, which is the keyword before or after the word dentist, would narrow the search results that Google would present to the consumer, but the word dentist is telling Google that this user is looking for a dentist. We call this a hyper-local search because Google says, oh, the word dentist, they must be looking for a brick-and-mortar presence, meaning a dental practice near them. Now, you don't have to even type in the word near me. The Google algorithm is going to assume that if you're typing in the word dentist, you're looking for a dentist, and then the qualifier around it determines what type of dentist. So that's statistic number one. Statistic number two is over 80% of all of these 7 million searches are occurring on a mobile device. Now that's important because, as you know, your mobile view of content is different than your desktop view. In other words, that maps area, you would scroll a couple times to see it because you've got ads at the top, maps in the middle, and then the organic searches down below. So it could be 2 or 3 scrolls before you get to the get below the maps. And that's an important component here because the third component is Google considers these search queries, these hyper-local search queries, as local, and therefore will always place the ads and the maps as top results. So it doesn't matter if you type in, if the user types in Invisalign dentist, implant dentist, dental implants. This is the general search result that's going to come up. Ads at the top, maps second, and when you're on your mobile device, you would scroll 2 to 3 times before you would see anything else other than the ads or the maps. And Google is very sophisticated. They know this. This has resulted in 54% of all of these searches end up clicking within the maps or above. So if you don't think the ads are clicked, you're mistaken. They are clicked a lot. That's why Google is a multi-billion-dollar company. And it's also why they've gotten very sophisticated at displaying search results based on where the searcher is, which is the last point you need to understand. Additionally, Google heavily weighs the search results based on the user's location at the time of search. Simply put, if I type in my phone right now, Invisalign dentist, and you type in your phone Invisalign dentist, we're going to see different results. Why? Well, because we're not standing next to each other. But if we're standing next to each other, we would see similar results, much more similar results than not. Now, Google takes other considerations into play here, like my past search history, your past search history, etc. But ultimately, it's heavily weighted by where we are located when we make that search. And finally, you need to understand, because of that, no amount of Google reviews will necessarily get you any higher on that reviews list, because it's heavily weighted on where we are at the time we're searching. So the only way to get to those top searches is to buy ads. And you can buy ads within the Google Maps or at the top of search. And so that's a huge component to understanding how Google has controlled the game when it comes to hyperlocal search. SEO in its traditional sense, the way you have been taught about it, has changed drastically. And so that's an important component to building your funnel. The next thing you need to do, now that you understand where the ducks are flying, and again, we can talk about other advertising sources all day long, but we're just talking about the specific funnel for, in general terms, Google's where a lot of the ducks are flying. So we want to improve your chances of converting those consumers that are coming to Google and or other channels. And the way that we the way that we do this more effectively is the use of ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels is using a revolutionary software and website integration. Again, in this case, we need our PRM software to tie with our landing page for this to be effective. So we give the consumer an option to engage with our website rather than just read some information and either decide to schedule or not. This gives you a second opportunity to engage with that user and build rapport and get them into your funnel to help move them towards an appointment. So the way we do this is an assessment or a quiz or some downloadable piece of communication that would be interesting enough for the user to give a name and email in exchange for the results. And this is what we call a ClickFunnel. In the example on the screen, we're using an Invisalign assessment. The user can click through and answer questions based on what they're trying to achieve. And at the bottom, they fill out their name and information for the results of the Invisalign assessment to see if they're a candidate. In doing so, we grab that contact information and we group that contact information, and we then can start messaging to that consumer, as well as notify the front office of the fact that they have a new lead, a new opportunity, so they can start to step in and build rapport with that consumer as well. All with the goal, of course, of helping the patient go ahead and accept an appointment to look into Invisalign further. So this is a great example of how you can make your website more than just a glorified brochure. You want to consider things like a strong headline, video, if you've got it, very simple content paragraphs, and big interactive buttons that people can click through and give them the ability to really interact with your website. So now we understand the process of a funnel. We want to match the channel being Google Ads in this case, and we're also going to do a comparison and contrast to Facebook, just as an example of the differences. You want to match the channel to the behavior. So the beauty of Google ads in the example of the hyperlocal ads I'm mentioning is they are intent based, meaning they're keyword search targeted, meaning I type in Invisalign dentist, Google knows that I'm looking for a dentist who performs Invisalign, my information is served up. That's showing consumer intent, I want this, and Google's helping us say, here it is, here's the answer, let's line those two up. And this is a beautiful marriage because it's the closest thing to finding that needle in a haystack, someone who's actually looking for your information versus someone who's not looking for your information and you have to put your information in front of them and attract them even though they weren't looking for it. And that's where Facebook comes in, is it can be powerful because while the consumer wasn't looking for the information, hopefully your ad, because it's visual based as opposed to keyword based like Google, you might have a better chance of capturing someone's interest. But if we back up to the difference between Google and Facebook and how you want to promote yourself to them, if you're with Google, you want to go right up the gut, meaning present them an opportunity to book now. You do not want to use the assessment style like you would with Facebook, because again, this consumer on Google we're assuming is ready to go. They've already made research decisions. They've already gotten to the point where they're showing intention. So we don't want to distract them. You might have a video or you might have a little bit of bullet points, but you're not going to move them through an assessment funnel. You're going to just present them an offer or present them a method to schedule now. And again, the online booking component is where you're going to improve your chances of conversion because the consumer's ready to go. Whereas Facebook, they weren't looking for the services, but you might have attracted them with your ad, so you want to give them 2 or 3 options. One might be take an assessment and find out what Invisalign might do for you, or download a white paper on the 5 benefits of Invisalign. Or, of course, they can always book now. We're always going to give them that option to book now, because if they're even remotely interested, that's the ultimate goal of any promotion, is to get them to book now. Now, any of these methodologies gives you a chance to get them into your funnel so you can start controlling that narrative from the very beginning point at which they decided they wanted to take the next step. Now, the next component would be providing them a no-touch appointment booking process. So this is really important, and a lot of dentists are fearful of doing online appointment booking because they're worried about the ability to control their schedule. And I understand that. Certainly it's important that your schedule is something you control. With legwork specifically, we've created a methodology that allows you to maintain that control, and there are other systems out there that allow you to do that, so you don't lose control of your appointment booking while still giving that consumer what they want, which is more access to you. And so appointment booking is critical to consider because of the way we are as a consumer today. In fact, a recent survey mentioned that 70% of people prefer to book online, and 28% said medical appointments are their top preference. They want more accessibility to you. So we need to be thinking about shifting our own minds in order to be more accessible. And online booking is one of the ways to do that. The benefits to the patient are they can avoid wasting time from either being put on hold, getting voicemail, or waiting till practice opening hours. A lot of people are wanting to make appointments in off hours, and we see this with advertising. They respond in the evenings, and they nowadays with COVID, children are at home. They've got to coordinate everyone's schedule. It's getting hard with COVID, so having that easy accessibility to make an appointment is going to be critical for the consumer. Next, you want to leverage web tools that help the users while helping you control the narrative to build your online presence. Your website should act as the hub of all of these possible communications in order to enhance your online presence and help control that narrative. So make your website the hub of every piece of communication you can, because remember, the patient's controlling the narrative. So the earlier we get them into our funnel and start controlling that narrative, the more they're going to tell others how great that result was. So these are things like a patient portal to give patients the access they need to manage and pay their bill. to make appointments online, to handle their online forms, updates and things they might need to make changes to. Or if they're a new patient, again, making appointments, filling out their forms online in the comfort of their home in their pajamas rather than at the office. These kinds of accessibility benefits not only drive traffic to your website, which helps your online presence, but makes the experience better for the patient. And also remember, the patient's distracted, fearful, etc. All these things solve many, many problems by making the website more of a hub and less of just a glorified brochure. Curbside check-in is the second component to this process from when the patient decides to make the appointment. And that is, again, considering their fears nowadays, etc. And this is easily done with a good PRM system. The CDC recommends to practice social or physical distancing, as we all know, which is 6 feet apart. Well, imagine that you have a reception size of 100 to 240 square feet of space, which would be about average. This would mean that you could only fit in about 2 to 6 people in your practice at any given time. So depending on how many people are waiting, you could easily be out of compliance. Now, that's not a fearful statement, that's just reality. So because this and a COVID pre-screen is highly recommended, you can solve this by doing a curbside check-in using automation. This is going to solve a lot of those consumer pain points of fear and accessibility, etc. And it's going to appease the CDC guidelines. So a curbside check-in is a great way to control that narrative. You might also consider virtual consults. These are a new way to create a new revenue stream while solving a lot of these narrative pain points. So providing patients with conveniences while adding a new revenue stream like virtual consults, checkups, post-operative checks, emergency visits, all of this can solve a lot of the pain points that we're seeing in the community, in the marketplace today. And again, helping you control that narrative so that patients talk highly of you online and help spread the good word about your brand. Learning from patient experiences. This is another one that's really hard for dentists to ultimately get their head around, because ultimately dentists want reviews. And reviews are powerful to controlling the narrative. A positive review helps control the narrative. But more importantly than a review itself is why you're getting a good review or perhaps a negative review. And this is where net promoter scoring can come into play. And big Fortune 500 companies use net promoter scoring and think of net promoter scoring as way more valuable than they review, because they know if they treat more of their consumers in a positive way and they get more positive scores, those reviews become easy, those positive reviews. So in times of uncertainty, we need to more than ever learn from patients by asking for their feedback, not just for asking for a review. Net promoter scoring helps you make powerful predictions about patient behavior and whether or not they're at risk of leaving or a massively positive brand advocate. And if we can identify who those patients are, we can improve upon the business. So predicting patient behavior and its potential outcome on the practice will help you step in and make appropriate changes for patients when they need it most. So NPS helps you segment patients by loyalty, identify unsatisfied or at-risk patients, and monitor improvements around services and treatments, and help predict patients' needs as it relates to COVID-19. So an NPS survey with the ability to measure those metrics is way more powerful than the review itself, because you'll get more reviews as a result of better experiences. You won't get more reviews if you don't take a look in the mirror every once in a while. Now, this is the bottom of the funnel. This is the advocate stage. We want consumers to talk positively about their results once they become patients and ultimately become advocates. And this is where sharing their experiences publicly, not through the NPS, which is internally, but publicly through a review, is going to help complete this cycle. So review generation and management is the creme de la creme of all of this alignment. But again, you won't get positive reviews and positive community feedback unless you align the funnel. So 42% of Americans Here's some stats for you, 42% of Americans don't see the dentist as often as they would like. That's great. That means there's lots of opportunity still in the community. 42% of Americans don't see you as much as they would like. Well, let's get them in the door. Second, 85% believe that oral health is extremely important to their overall health. That means they see value in what you provide. That's also good. But here's the piece where the brand narrative is controlled by the consumer, as we've been talking about. 92% of consumers trust referrals from people they know. And that's where reviews and your patient community is way more powerful than any advertising you could put out there. But when those that are referred or those looking for a dentist, when they start their search, remember, they all start it online, and that's where this cycle comes back around. And remember, 54% of all local search queries result in no search click results, meaning they're showing up in those maps. And you can now create online booking capabilities right from Google and your business listings, so making that accessibility more important than ever. So the last piece I want you to think about is avoid going dark. This means staying top of mind when that patient is not in the door. Remember, all of your other competitors out there are going to be marketing their businesses. And so if a patient leaves with a clean bill of health from their prior appointment and they didn't need anything but a cleaning, they aren't necessarily going to think of you when Johnny breaks a tooth on his bike from falling on his bike, or mom needs some veneers or whatever it is. You want them thinking of you. And so making sure that you're educating patients on additional services not only increases web traffic, because you want to use your website as the landing point for this communication, which helps your online presence, but it retains those patients and educates them about what's possible. So that is another component to retention in this funnel process. So I want to thank you for your time today, and just close up with Legwork's September special signing offer through Nifty Thrifty. If you sign up with our Legwork 2.0 software, which has a lot of the benefits and features that we've talked about today, and also has some additional features that we haven't talked about, you will get a free website design, and you will not pay for 30 days for just $2.99. So please consider contacting us at sales@legwork.com, or by calling toll-free at 877-311-4690. Thank you so much for your time. If you would like to reach out to me personally, I'm always here to help. Reach out to me at Korey@legwork.com. Thank you.
All right, so that was an awesome presentation. Korey, you definitely over-delivered there. And so, we wanted to record this little short Q&A session because obviously you gave us so many great pearls. And I want to talk about branding, right? I want to talk about branding. And
Sure.
so for those who are watching right now, maybe you have a practice that's established. Maybe you just started, but maybe you never really focused on your brand. Maybe your office was Dr. So-and-so and that's it, right? But now with how things have changed in our society, you really need to kind of go back and really solidify that brand. So Korey, let's talk about the things that they can do right away, right? So on Monday, they're like, okay, I want to get my brand, I want to grow it, I want to get it out there. What are some tips that someone can implement right away on Monday to kind of start working on their brand?
Sure. Well, I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, the thing you want to take away is that no matter how you market your practice, if your brand isn't well defined, your marketing doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
So if I were to line up all the dentists in the room that are listening to these webinars, and I were to ask a patient to come into the room and say, pick out the best dentist, how would they do that?
Yeah.
So the only way to do that is if you're defining how your practice is unique and the value proposition that you offer uniquely over others. And the best way to do that is to first define yourself by three simple questions. Who are you? What do you do? and why does it matter to your patients? If you can answer those questions very definitively and distinctly, and not in a generic way, but in a way that really helps set you apart, you have a great baseline for helping differentiate yourself through your messaging.
I love that. I mean, that is something literally, guys, once you're done watching all the presentations, and don't stop right now, because I'm actually going to be speaking next. Okay. So stick around for mine.
Yeah. Listen to that one, please.
Stick around for mine. But after you listen to mine and I give you some action stuff there, you're going to sit down and you're going to answer those 3 questions. And if your practice right now, Korey, is it safe to say if your practice right now are not displaying the answers to those 3 things, then you might have a branding problem?
Absolutely. And from the patient's viewpoint, not from your viewpoint, because remember, the patient, as much as we wish that we could control the patient's viewpoint, ultimately the patient makes up or builds the perception of how they see your brand. You can only help guide them. Ultimately, they determine how your brand is perceived in the marketplace. They have more power than we do, because they can talk about you, they can refer to you, and so on. So your job is to really make sure that when they talk about you, they have, they can, no pun intended, sink their teeth into something unique, something valuable, something that helps you stand apart.
Now, Korey, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot. And I love doing this. And guys, if you've been following us and all our Facebook Lives, I love to put Korey on the spot. So Korey, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You ready for this?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so branding is such a big part of your career, and you brought just that philosophy of really defining a brand to legwork. Okay, can I ask you this? Do most of your team members, do they understand the concept of a good brand?
Yes, they
okay.
do.
So,
but they understand it as it is applied through legwork. So They can't necessarily coach you on how to build a brand, but they can coach you on how to apply your brand through legwork.
So this is where I'm going to put you on the spot there, because look, you're a branding expert. You're not, obviously you're an expert in legwork. You're an expert on helping practices grow. But if we have members who have questions about branding, would you be interested in helping them out?
Of course, I am. Look, the bottom line is legwork's focus at the end of the day is to make as many dental practices successful, whether you use legwork or not. Why? Well, because if the dental industry is healthy, legwork has a chance to be healthy as well. So I'm always here for the Nifty Thrifty crew.
I love it. I love it. And that's why we all love Korey in this group here. So guys, you've been typing questions in the comments. Korey would get to it. But if you have branding questions, just put them down in the comments section. And you know what? If it gets to the point where it's a lot of questions, we might have to bring this man back and we'll just focus on that and get all your questions answered. And you know what? There's not that many CEOs who say, hey, I'm willing to give the time to a group to answer questions that's kind of related to my product, but not really. It's something that he's passionate about. So Korey, you just agreed, guys. You saw it right here. He's agreed to it. But speaking of legwork, and I use legwork in my practice. I love it. Let's talk about that deal again, right? Let's talk about that amazing deal that you're offering just for this event here. And so let's go over that one more time, Korey. Let's talk about that deal one more time.
Sure. Well, thank you. So as you know from recent conversations, Legwork 2.0 is releasing, and it is a series of tiered releases of the most innovative new features that Legwork has to offer in a 2-year culmination of work. So, new features are coming out in September, October, November, and December, all the way through the end of the year. And so in order to get excitement, to educate customers about what's coming, we've offered a pre-sale where if you sign up now as a Nifty Thrifty crew member or part of the group, that you will receive a special rate of one-time rate. In other words, this isn't going to come out again. This is a one-time rate opportunity of $299. And it includes the free website design in the offer, plus all the new features you'll be grandfathered in as they roll out this year through the last part of the quarter.
I mean, that is an amazing deal, guys. And like I said, when I heard it on the presentation, I was like shocked. And I wanted him to say it again because, guys, I mean, you want to take advantage of the deal. But you know what? I heard, I mean, so many good features, but then I heard free, right? The free website. And here's the thing. This is not a website that they're just throwing together. These guys actually are experts. I mean, you may think about legwork and whatnot, but legwork encompasses web design, and they have some amazing websites out there. And so it's such a great deal. And when you're talking about branding, I mean, websites are a big part of it, right, Korey?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it should be the anchor and the hub of all of your communications, as we talked about in the presentation today. So naturally, I would agree with you on that. And this website solution that we're offering is got all the robust software integrations that you would expect from a paying service. This is not some freebie one-time shot and you only get so much. It's a good quality product, mainly because it integrates our software website ecosystem, which is unique to the market. So check it out. Definitely worth checking out. Even if you do a demo and see what we have to offer, it's worth checking out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, once you do the demo, you're going to see how everything kind of flows together. And then you're going to listen back to Korey's presentation and you say, that makes a lot of sense. And you know what? And if you have more questions about branding, the man's here. He's willing to help out. He already mentioned it. So Korey, thank you so much, man, for an awesome presentation. Thank you so much for the deal. And we appreciate it. We're definitely going to get you back because you got so much more content. That's just a taste. I'm going to let you know, that's just a taste of all the knowledge he has. He'll be back soon. And if you ever get a chance to see him live, you definitely want to see him live, speaking live as well. So, Korey, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Always good to be a part of this group. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, my presentation's next, so don't go away. I'll see you soon. Infinite Dental Technologies. We know about Brandon Bomar's company. They have been hooking us up in our group with 3D CBCT units. Now, whether you're a general dentist or a specialist, they have the perfect ray scan 3D CBCT unit that will help you get to the next level. So they encourage all doctors to check out their website, www.infinitedentaltech.com, and also like their Facebook page. And why do you want to do that? Because you can get up-to-date educational material from them and also the latest and greatest deals. Now, they would love to do a 30-minute remote demo so you can take a closer look at their CBCT units. Now, what's the nifty deal? The nifty deal is this. Purchase a Ray Scan Alpha Plus at the special Nifty Thrifty price of $64.9. Now, normally the price is $80K. So that's a significant savings right there, but the deal does not end there. You actually get your choice of either a free Max Ray handheld X-ray or a Ray Scan intraoral sensor. Both valued at $6,500. You get it for free. Now this special promo will be good through September 30th.